We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Would you please let the record show that we are all present? And we're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I do have a deletion tonight. I received a phone call from the superintendent of the schools and asked us to please table the SRO item F until next month.
I'll move the approval of the agenda.
Oops, I got one other. I'm sorry.
Oh.
We also have
Oh my
to...
gosh.
We have to move the Pineview Court to I from D because they cannot be here till then.
Okay. I will move the approval of the agenda with the following amendments. The removal of F and the shuffling of 11D down to 11I, and everything else in between would just move up.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to announcements and communications. Anyone have any?
I have one.
Go ahead.
All right, if everybody doesn't know or isn't aware, we are having a primary election August 2nd, which is a Tuesday, and this is a partisan primary, so there are two parties running, and you should be advised not to split your ticket. We don't have anything else on the ballot, so if you cross over your votes, the machine can't tell what party you're voting for, so you want to make sure that you go ahead and vote a straight ticket either side, whichever side you decide. And if you need an absentee ballot, we do have them at the office now, so please stop on by and grab one if you need one. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Robert and I attended the SEMCOG meeting on behalf of Lyon Township, and it was for economic development in the areas and ways to there's a lot of focus on electric vehicles and getting those types of facilities within the area, kind of as a tailing on to the auto industry. So just something to keep in mind as we continue to develop here.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to the call to the public. This is when you can come up and talk about non-agenda related items. We'd like you to have your name and address for the record, and please keep it within a 3-minute talk. We're starting a new feature here so that we know where we're at and everyone can get a chance to talk. So this is the timer. It'll start as you start.
Thank you. My name is Valerie Harrison. I live on 52565 Horseshoe Lane in Lyon Township. I and my husband have lived here for 22 years, first on Haas Road, then on Johns Road. And during that time, we've tried to be good neighbors and good citizens. We voted in every local election, and we paid our taxes every year. I'm here today to talk about the noise and dust and smell coming from the Iron Horse property on Haas Road. When we moved to our property, it was very quiet and peaceful. It's our haven. We actually took a decibel meter and listened to it, and it was very nice and quiet. But in the last 2 years, things have changed dramatically. First, it was the smell. It was so bad you couldn't go outside without gagging. I had to go to the Michigan DEQ to get that resolved, because apparently the township did not have any mechanism to resolve that. Then it was the dust. So gouts of dust will come over the tree line and across the lake and coat the neighborhood. Just today, I watched a huge cloud of dust billow over across the trees. But again, apparently there's nothing the township can do about that. But now there is noise and hundreds of trucks running along my property line, which is literally just a few hundred feet from my house. It starts as early as 6:30 in the morning, sometimes on a Saturday, and I have clocked it at 90 decibels at my property, which is very loud. So I understand, yet again, the township's hands are tied, that the property owner has permission to run his business through 2028, And I don't begrudge anyone from conducting business. I don't begrudge people from making a living. But I also don't expect anyone to begrudge me the peace of my home and to take steps to remedy this unacceptable situation. We recently went online to see if any other neighbors were having this problem, both on Haas Road and on Johns Road. And we were threatened when we did that. We were told, don't mess with old Rod, Rod being the property owner, if you know what's good for you. And Rod will bounce you out of your house. And we have screenshots of this and have contacted the police. So I don't know if this individual speaks for the property owner, but it's very disturbing to have the peace of my home not only disturbed with the noise and the dust, but with threats to my physical safety. We all have to live and work together, and all of us should be able to have a voice without fear of threats. Many neighbors are out of town for the holiday, but there are some here tonight, and more will speak out when they get back, probably at the next meeting. And I really hope the township will take this matter seriously and address our concerns, both around the property values and around the quality of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Chuck, 25365 Stanley Lane. I just want to take a minute and give you a brief summary of our 13th Annual Kite Festival, which it seems like it was like 2 months ago, and here it's just been a month. But we had a tremendous year. First of all, I'd like to begin by thanking the Township Trustees, the Board, for supporting us as they have in the past few years. And we had the best year ever. One of our simple metrics, it's very difficult to count people because people walk in, they ride their bike. But one of our metrics that we use is we count the cars. And typically, we may park. Thank you, Mr. Planner. Typically, we may park 800 or 900 cars over 2 days. And I know Patty knows because for the past 5 or 6 years, she's been out there helping us. This year, we parked 1,250 cars, our best year ever. This thing is catching wildfire. After 13 years, it's pretty turnkey, but it keeps growing and growing. And this year was international. We had people back from Canada. And just a tremendous opportunity for not only the people in our region and our township, but this thing has become much larger. It's regional now. We get people from 5 different counties. We had tremendous media support on Fox 2 News, and just wanted to let you know how it went, and thank you again for everything you guys do to help us make that possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come on up? Come on up.
It's this one? Yeah, that one. Yes, my name is Todd Slisher. I also reside at 52565 Horseshoe Lane, and I've come before the group here to complain about the truck traffic along Hans Road and Johns Road. I've been a homeowner in the area for 22 years on Haas Road and then in the White Horse Lake neighborhood, which is just off of Johns. Now, that its site had been previously a kind of sleepy gravel pit, and yes, there were occasional trucks that came from it, but as I understand right now, the owner has a contract with the I-96 project and is crushing concrete there and is routing almost 1,000 trucks per day down Haas Road and up Johns Road in different areas. This is causing a lot of problems. It's causing a lot of dust. It's causing a lot of noise. The sound is very loud along our property line and along the roads. Talked to several neighbors that have issues with this. But I want to point out that the area is also zoned agricultural residential. It's not really zoned for a gravel hauling, crushing business. And I'd like the township to take a look at that. We have talked to Mark Snyder at zoning here, and Mark unfortunately says that there's not much he can do. I have also talked to the owner of the business, Rodney Burrell. Now, Mr. Burrell has said that he is going to try to take some steps to mitigate this, that he's going to try to do some spraying and to try to move the truck traffic away from the property line. This conversation just took place this weekend, so I haven't seen it yet, but we will stand by and wait and possibly come talk to you at the next meeting, depending on what happens. But I just wanted to let everybody know that this is a problem for the area, that there are a lot of trucks being routed up those roads, and it's causing a lot of problems for neighbors in the area and a lot of problems with kind of enjoyment of our property and potentially property values if it would continue. So I please ask the board to look at this issue and take it into advisement and kind of ask some questions about it and monitor the truck traffic on Johns and Hodds Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Johnston, live at 27905 Haas Road. Been there for 32 years, and I concur with what they're saying. Boy, the noise is, I'm right near the intersection there. The noise is horrible all day long. The braking, they're jake braking, they're coming through. The dust. Water on the road doesn't help anything because they're just dragging more mud off of Haas Road onto the paved road. It brings more mud out and more dust. The zoning thing. I don't know how this all slipped by, who, when, or where. I almost feel like we've been lost or forgotten about or left behind or something, because I don't know how you go from a moderate little gravel pit to this concrete crushing operation going nonstop. I worked in concrete in my years. The dust from concrete contains a lot of silica. The water from those ponds is the water we drink out of our wells. I'm not sure where he's going with the water or what they're doing with that as far as in the pit itself. Chunks of concrete and other materials are in my front yard from the trucks. The vibrations and the noise, constant all day long. It's damaging Haas Road itself. They just repaved it not too long ago, and it's now deteriorating rapidly. 1,000 trucks, 1,000 concrete trucks. Trucks filled with concrete a day. That's not agricultural, that's not residential, I'm not sure what to do about it. The loads come through, half of them aren't covered. That's part of the reason probably I'm finding stuff in my yard. They run right through the stop signs there. I just want to know, I don't think this is a compromise scenario with Rod. This has to be stopped, in my opinion. And I would hope that you guys take action on it or that things actually get worked on. I'm new at all this too, so. But thank you.
You did good.
Good evening. My name's Lydia Gobis. I live at 52544 Caddy Lane. I'm also here to talk about the issue on Haas Road. We've been living in the area for about 22 years, and as Valerie stated, we didn't notice any issues until the last few years, and now we've been tolerating the smell from the composting there, the noise from the trucks, and the dust. And we are on the opposite side of the lake, so that's how widespread the issue is. The one thing I wanted to talk about today was I just left to run an errand this afternoon, and I was driving down Johns Road, and here come two semi-trucks towards me and one away from me. They took up the entire Johns Road, and all I could think about is what's going to happen when the students from South Lyon East start practicing for cross country. They run down Johns Road. That's pretty dangerous. I've seen the students from Catholic Central running down Johns Road as well, and the girls from St. Catherine's. So you have three major high schools in the area that are using that road for practice, cross country, and that road should be safe. So not only are they running through dust, unfortunately, because that road isn't paved, but there are no sidewalks. So I ask that if this board is going to sanction that all these trucks drive down Johns Road, that they make the road safe for our residents and especially for our students. And 3 semi-trucks coming down the road at the same time is not safe. And it's also creating a lot of traffic. I've seen the traffic on Napier Road, on 12 Mile, and on Johns Road, and on Haas. So absolutely something has to be done. I understand the expressway needs to be fixed, the concrete needs to be crushed, but there are other things that need to be done, and safety is one of them. So I ask that you take a look at that seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kristen Johnston. I live at 27905 Haas Road. I have lived on Haas Road since April 4th, 1990. I picked up my keys at 12 noon. In March of 1993, I became a stay-at-home mother, and I was a stay-at-home mother until May of 2006. So I am very well-versed in how many trucks normally run up and down that road. When we first moved in, there was a lot of gravel trucks. Well, not a lot, I shouldn't say that. There was an average number of gravel trucks going up and down the road on a regular basis because they were rebuilding roads at the time. The gravel pits basically shut down and were basically dormant, and all of a sudden this happened. Okay, we call the township, we speak to Mark Scheider, he says there's nothing we can do, they have a court order. I would like information about this court order because I've actually tried to find it. I want to know where it is, why I can't locate it, and I would like to see a copy of it. I would think that should be sent to the residents, and I want to know why we were not notified that this was being turned into a concrete crushing business. Okay, like I said, since May of 2006, I started working, and since April of 2018, I started working from home. Okay, over the last 2 years, I've had to keep my windows shut. All the time my windows shut. Doesn't matter what the temperature is outside. I cannot open my windows because of the noise and the dust coming through. It is impossible for us to eat on our new patio set that we just bought. It is constantly covered in dust. We constantly have to clean it off, and even when we're done eating, there's more dust on the table. This is a big problem that the board needs to address. They need to look out for the residents. He may have an investment in that business, but we have investments in our homes, and not everybody has huge piles of money sitting around, and who cares about your house? That's our biggest investment. And by not doing anything about it, the township is destroying it, and I feel my civil rights are being violated simply because I can't open my windows. I can't eat outside. I can't, in the 5 minutes it takes me to get my mail, I counted 17 trucks going up and down in front of my house with the noise and the dust. I cannot mow my lawn. At the very front of the lawn by the road, I run through there with my lawnmower and I am engulfed in dust. Who knows what's in that dust? My husband worked in concrete for over 30 years. He is now retired. He can't even sleep in because the trucks start at 6:30 in the morning. Okay, and he knows concrete, he understands it, he's been to classes, and there is silica in that dust. So I know the MDQ has been out there, but shouldn't the township be looking into getting the EPA out there to see if we are being poisoned, not just in our water, but in the air that we are forced to breathe? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come on up? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close call to the public and we're going to move on to reports. First report we've got here is the DDA.
I submitted a copy of a memo in your board packets with some updates on what's been going on in the DDA the last month. Since our last meeting, I have attended the Michigan Downtown Association Summer Workshop and brought back some great information that we'll be utilizing. I've also sat in and arranged a couple of meetings between both Wabasto and Pratt Miller with the Ann Arbor Spark program, which partners up STEAM and STEM industries with an intern program that's funded through some grant monies through the state. So we're hoping to get those companies on board, and I'm reaching out to some of the other industries in our industrial park to see if we can get them involved in that program too. We also submitted for a Flagstar Bank grant application for our Inspiration Park sign that just went in last month. We're continuing to work on the development of an extended TIF agreement proposal for Oakland County, and we'll be working on creating a prioritization list for projects that we'll be undertaking in the next 3 years for the DDA. And then lastly, we are running our next Music on the Grand Summer Concert on July 13th. We have the band Forge the Sun. It's being sponsored by Aero Design Services. We'll have the fortune cooking food truck out there. And we'll also have a special performance from the cardio drumming, Southline Community Cardio Drumming group. They'll be performing from 5:30 to 6 at the park. So we're excited to get some more organizations involved in that event. But we've been having a really good turnout. About 80 to 120 people have been coming out to each event throughout the time frame. So we feel it's a great start for this program that's new to the community. So we hope to see you out there soon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to fire. Chief, anything?
I know, I was going to start the timer for me too.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just an update as far as what's going on with the fire department in the last, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Last month. We have met with MDOT. Obviously, we know the issues that are going on with the freeway. And after receiving an email from them about how to be able to access contractors if there were any issues, the fire department, along with the sheriff's office and Wixom Fire Department, asked for a meeting with MDOT because there have been some issues in getting to everyday citizens on the freeway, depending on where the incident has been, going eastbound or westbound, primarily between Milford Road and Wixom. So we did have a somewhat productive meeting with them a week or two ago. The takeaway from that meeting was that they did give us access to 360-degree motion cameras, about 9 to 12 of them that they have added. So then at least we can see if the accident is, or the incident is eastbound or westbound, because sometimes that information is misrepresented or just wrongly given by accident. So that was one positive. The other thing we needed to know, though, was how we were actually going to get to injuries on the freeway. And so this Thursday, we're going to try and come up with some resolution, even though there's still going to be some issues no matter what. And so the sheriff's office and our departments are going to meet up on the work zone areas of the freeway to see if we can come up with something that it makes it a little better. It's not going to be perfect, and it's still going to take longer on these incidents to get there, but we are addressing the issue. The other thing I wanted to mention, as far as the Ladder 24 update with that coming soon sign, it actually is coming soon. So it's been brought up back to Ohio. We're hoping, and it will be brought to Michigan to get detailed with the inspections, passing and everything, that we hope to take delivery of it by mid-August. So under promise, over deliver, and hopefully we'll get it sooner, but we will plan on the September meeting to bring it here to the board and give free rides to the public.
That'll be fun.
We'll take you 100 foot. So other than that, I think that was it. Captain Carl Peters started last month here, and he's been doing great. And in the next few weeks, we'll be bringing on Captain John Orzak, and that will help our staffing quite a bit. And that concludes my report. Question?
Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on, Lieutenant. Anything from the Sheriff's Department?
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple things to briefly touch on. Give you a couple of updates. Our light press machine arrived today. Our Deputies Association is gracious enough to donate a piece of supplemental equipment to complement what you were nice enough to give us, you and the residents of Lyon Township, so we're very appreciative of that. If any of you would like to come down and see how it works out, flows in the room, please feel free to do so. We're very proud of it. I have trial, July 29th. If you recall back about 4 years ago, the assault on the trail took place. This is the 5th time that we are going at it. Hopefully, I've been promised that we're going to get it done. But July 29th, I'm expected to be gone for about 7 to 10 days with this trial. It would be nice to bring that to a conclusion and get this guy some prison time that he deserves. But I'll still be available by phone, and in my absence, Detective Sergeant Brown and Sergeant Fortier. Thank you. In my absence, Detective Sergeant Brown and Sergeant Fortier will be available to take anything that, any matters that come up while I'm gone. And the last thing is the Oakland County Sheriff's Office is actively recruiting. If anybody knows anyone that would be interested in becoming a deputy, please feel free to reach out to myself or have them contact OCSO-recruitment@oakgov.com. The pay range starts from $40,000 to $65,000, and it's a great career. Yeah. So please feel free to put them in contact with our people at the recruitment department. There'll be an exam held July 23rd at our Brandon Training Center, and yeah, if anyone has anyone that they need to get a job, just let us know. Let's see here. I believe that's it for me. Does Chief cover the MDOT? We've had a couple of issues. There have been a couple of PDAs that have ultimately led to fistfights on the side of the highway. Now, primarily, the highway is the state police's responsibility, but due to the traffic constraints, they're not able to get a unit up there. So we've gone up there a couple of times to address the issue. Hopefully, after our meeting on Thursday, we'll come up with a better solution so our emergency responders can get to those incidents when they become a problem for us. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. All right, we're going to move on to the Planning Commission.
Okay. We had 2 meetings in the month of June. Our first meeting was Monday, June 13th. We didn't have any public hearings and no old business, but we did have 2 new businesses on our agenda. One was Coyote Plan Development Conceptual Review, which is on our agenda tonight. And we also had the Chickerell Planned Lion Plan Development Conceptual Review on our agenda. And remember, they were just conceptual, so just the Planning Commission gave their opinions, and the board will do that tonight. Not the Chickerell, they're not on our agenda tonight. And then Brian updated us on just a few things on master plan that he was going to bring back to our next meeting. So that concluded that meeting. And then our second meeting of the month was Monday, June 27th. No public hearings, no old business, new business. We had a conceptual plan review by the Planning Commission for some text amendments, which we have now scheduled a public hearing for. And we had a very long discussion about the master plan. That Brian gave us some good ideas for the Planning Commission to discuss and think about. And we are continually working on our master plan revision, and that would conclude my reports. Is there any questions?
Patty, for everyone in the audience, when that master plan gets to a point, maybe this is for Brian, when can the residents come in and talk about the master plan?
Thank you, John. We typically put that on the second Planning Commission agenda of each month to talk about little incremental updates or clarifications that I need from the Planning Commission. My plan is to have a draft of the plan to the Planning Commission this month in a few weeks. And then from there, we'll have some rounds of revision with the Planning Commission. There will ultimately be a public hearing scheduled when we're ready to adopt that document. We have not talked about how we're going to put that out as far as the township goes, but I assume we'll put that on social media. We'll put it on the township website as best we can. So that public hearing, people will have an opportunity, but the Planning Commission is always willing to listen to any public comments that anybody wishes to share at any point in time, or else you can contact me. My information is available at the Planning Department counter, and I can work or answer any questions that you might have on that document, or share any feedback that you'd like me to take to the Planning Commission.
So you're saying the second meeting of each month, the public can come and voice some concerns or help with the planning of the master plan?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's good to know, and I think that should be on our website. And
Yeah, and that's the second meeting is the fourth Monday of every month.
okay, fourth Monday of every month, just so everyone knows. It's a good thing to do. Have some input in the master planning of the township. Okay, we're going to move on to the ZBA.
We had a meeting that dealt with the property on South Hill Road, and the applicant requested a variance for, regarding the building height, and it's been similar to the other ZBA requests that was granted with the condition of some larger trees. And I understand from the planning commission is looking at changing that tree height. So as a ZBA, we appreciated knowing that the ZBA or that the planning commission was going to be taking a look at that with the larger buildings having something that's more appropriate in scale.
Perfect. Thank you, Lise. All right, Dave is out, personal reasons, so we do not have a building report tonight. The water report is going to be very basic. The control wiring for the electricity is going in now. And the only problem that we have left in the softening plant is the auger that actually transports the silica sand from the outside tank to the inside tank is on back order. And that is our biggest hang-up right now, is getting that last piece of equipment to get this softening turned on. We were hoping to have it turned on by the end of this month, possible, but if that auger doesn't make it, that's a big deal. But it's coming. We're getting there. We're getting there. Again, open invitation. Anyone wants to go out and see what's going on, please contact me. We'll go out and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so that concludes the reports for tonight, and we do have a public hearing tonight. We have 2 items on that. I think, can we do them both in one public hearing? They're both speculative building status?
I think we can combine them since it's the same applicant. We'll go ahead and combine it into one public hearing, and if someone wants to speak, they can speak as to a specific unit if they want.
So we have a consideration of a speculative building status for 30180 Research Drive, and also a speculative building status for 55285 Lion Industrial Drive. And Amy, do you want to explain to the public exactly what we're talking about here?
Included in the board packets for this evening were 2 applications for a speculative building status from GSL Holdings LLC. One, as the supervisor mentioned, is for 30180 Research Drive, and one is for 55285 Lion Industrial Drive. Both of these parcels are located in already established industrial development districts. Also included in the packet was a memo from the DDA that outlines the process of submission for a speculative building status and the DDA's recommended course of action. The applications submitted tonight are for speculative building status only. There is no request for an industrial facilities tax exemption or abatement of any kind at this time. If granted, the speculative building status would permit the property owner to market the property as pre-approved for a tax abatement consideration. It would not guarantee an abatement, but it would essentially guarantee that the township will look favorably at any subsequent request for an IFTEC when the building is occupied.
Okay. Does everyone kind of get the gist of what this is? All right. That being said, we're going to open the public hearing. It is 7:33, and anyone would like to come up and have any input on the tax abatement status of a speculative building, now's the time you can walk up to the microphone. Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:34, and we're going to move on to unfinished business. This is the consideration of the adoption of the Orchard Crossing Plan Development to authorize a signature by the supervisor and the clerk of the Orchard Crossing Plan Development Agreement. Do you want to go ahead, Brian?
John, actually, I have to do my spiel. I just want to make it known again, as this has gone through the entire planning process, that this development proposal, it comes before me like it is going to be built in my backyard. This particular development proposal is in my backyard, though the improvements are about 1,000 feet away. My home does back up to this proposed development, and just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Okay. No one has any problems with that, right? No? Okay, Brian, you want to lead us in?
Okay, thank you, John. This is actually your second reading for Orchard Crossing, so this would be the final meeting that the township will consider this project. If you approve it tonight, construction can begin on the schedule that the applicants have outlined. This would allow you to sign the plan development agreement. But in brief, the existing Irwin orchards would be preserved in a part of the existing orchard would be preserved. A portion of the orchard would be turned into single-family homes. If you follow my cursor on the board, on the west side, there would be duplex units here on the northwest corner of Kent Lake Road and Silver Lake Road. A farmer's market building at the northeast corner of that same intersection, an event center / restaurant here on the property as well, and then various improvements to the orchard, including some additional buildings, some additional event space, sorry, not event space, but outdoor activity space. I think that's a good outline of the project.
Okay.
Staff and consultants have reviewed all of the plan development agreement, all of the exhibits. We do have, I think maybe Leslie can speak, she had very minor amendments to the site plan. I did want to point out that at the first reading there was a question whether or not the sidewalk should be built on the east side of Kent Lake Road, which is this portion here of the Farmers Market and Event Center. And in speaking with the applicants, we understand that they wish to add that to the add that to the final site plans to connect that up to the cottages at Turtle Creek to the north. So I do understand that that's something that they want to add to this as well, which is up for discussion this evening. So I think that's all I have for you, John.
Okay. Leslie, do you want to add anything?
I just had very minor comments on 2 sheets that I emailed to the applicant today, so if it's approved tonight, they would amend those before recording. Just a shading of the pathways on sheets 02 and 03 for the record. It's very minor, so no other concerns. Everything else will be cited through the engineering reviews.
Okay. Well, I think we've all talked about this, but I'm going to open it up for any conversation. I know the applicants are here, and I'm sure they're here to answer any questions if there's any questions on the final. Go ahead. Anybody? Oh.
Yeah, just I guess on the environmental remediation portion of this is that I know we had talked about taking a look at that as a separate, I guess prior to construction. Is that still the intent of that? Because I don't know if that's been submitted or for review or not.
Go ahead. I think you can answer that question.
Sure. We would require the applicant have an environmental remediation pre-construction meeting first, before any mass grading or utility construction. This is not the only project that is going to follow this method, and the applicant has agreed to it, so I don't anticipate any issues.
I think the only items that I'm still receiving feedback on is, I guess, that procedure, and I guess when that comes forth and is reviewed and approved, is that something that people can take a look at and be able to see, familiarity with arsenic in the soil. It's usually in the first 6 inches to 12 inches of soil, but trying to show the public that yes, it's being removed from the areas of where the new homes are being constructed.
Yes, the reports are public, and they're available for the public view at any time. We have the initial environmental reports that were provided by the applicant, so what would happen is after cleanup, my understanding is they would submit a report also to Eagle and to us that the site has been effectively cleaned up per the plans that you see.
Okay. And for the post-construction monitoring, is that something that falls upon the township to continue to monitor it, or is that within the future HOA or state, or how does that?
Well, the land where it's the arsenic is being encapsulated is actually going to be on the orchard property. It's not going to be part of the HOA at all. So as far as future plan, once it's encapsulated, I don't know if there is any future monitoring of it. It's arsenic, it was in the top layer of soil. It's really just being used to create a berm and to encapsulate it so that it can't be used, and it's off of the residential lots, and it's also off of the area where the public will be for the orchard as well.
So the home, I guess the main kind of concern is the people that are moving in next to that, is that, I mean, they'll know not to, I don't know, plant trees outside or start digging into that berm, I guess is the...
If they do that, they would be on the Blake's property.
Right. Correct.
So I don't know how we could prevent that other than the Blakes informing them that they...
Well, you know, we've seen these with other developments as, you know, when you have an open space that's around the perimeter, people will start to leak into those, encroach, and yeah, there's people that have put swimming pools on opposite properties, so, okay. As long as it's, I guess that's the thing, is if people are moving in, they'll be aware that, you know, don't mess with the arsenic.
Well, I'm not sure if Lombardo, if you're planning, if they're planning to notify them, but technically, in my opinion, I don't think that notification to the lot owner is necessary because it's not part of their HOA. The land physically will not be in the HOA, so that's my opinion on
okay.
issue.
Okay, are you good?
Yep.
John, I just wanted to comment.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that your willingness to bring the sidewalk pathway, whatever the, is it going to be the bike path? Is it going to be a concrete sidewalk? Which is it?
I don't do karaoke, just for the record. That's the one thing I did want to speak to on that, if I may. You guys have known for years and years the beauty of working with Anthony. When I mentioned to him about the pathway and that, it's the right thing to do, right? The site to the north of us, Turtle Creek, I think it is, is going to have a pathway. Maybe selfishly, it allows their residents to come to the cider mill and enjoy that. But it's the right thing to do, and rather than argue about it, Anthony said do it.
I definitely appreciate
Robert
that.
had brought it up at the last meeting. We looked at it, we talked about it. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig. I really appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yep.
All right, I'd like to make a motion of the adoption of AP 22-11, Orchard Crossing Plan Development, to add the sidewalks to the north along the east side up to Turtle Creek subdivision, and also to consider the consideration to authorize the signature by the supervisor and the clerk of the Orchard Crossing Plan Development Agreement. That's my motion.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're moving on. Hey, I want to say one thing. I want to say one thing to the Irwins. The Irwins have been here for 100 years, folks. This is a big deal. I mean, I want to say that I'm really proud of Mr. Irwin, because this thing has went through, and your wife, I'm sorry, Lindolson. This thing has went through several different developments in its time.
I can't hear what I'm saying about it.
Come closer.
He didn't say you were 100, he said the property.
No, that's fine. No, I'm just saying that this thing's went through several different projects, and some of them were so massive that Mr. Irwin and Mrs. Irwin could have turned on the township and said, look, I'm going to go after you guys. He didn't. He loves his township. And we ended up with a project that is truly, I think it fits for everybody. I mean, it's putting the density in the back, it's keeping the orchards, we're getting somebody not quite as good as the Irwins to come and take care of this orchard, but at least we're keeping the orchard. And I wanted to thank you for all the years that you have ran that orchard, and you've done a marvelous job. And you know it's been a marvelous job because look at all the people that came out to try to stop that thing from moving. I just want to thank you, Mr. Irwin. Thank you.
Township for being considerate and helping us get through our transition. It's time for me to retire, time for Linda to retire, time for Bill to retire.
And I'm sure this wasn't easy.
Township has been good to us. It really has. It's been a good place to be. That was our intention all along, is to have some kind of orchard left for some kind of a, what do you want to call it, a legacy, what do you want to call it?
Yeah. Could be.
It's been fun, how about that? Now I'm ready to get off somewhere.
Well, thank you again, and we're very appreciative of your time. And Patty here has a story she has to tell, so you got to let her tell it.
I have to tell one donut story. I just want to tell it. It's so cute. And you know we love you. The whole board feels the same, Bill, about you and Linda and Bill Emery. We love you. We're so thankful. But here's my donut story. So my daughter moved to New Jersey, which was really sad for me, but I've gone to see her many times. But when it's fall time, first thing she says, Mom, are you going to bring me Irwin donuts? And I said, okay. It's like, you get up really early, go get the donuts because you want them to be fresh. You get on the plane and you fly there. This is so cute. I can't, it just cracks me up. So I'm going through, so I have them in my carry-on because they're donuts, right? So I put them on the thing, you know, you take your shoes off, your sweater, you pull up, and it goes through, and as it comes out, the guy looks at me and he goes, you know, there's only 11 donuts in that box. I'm thinking, I go, I got hungry, I'm sorry. I love to tell that story because it was so cute, and I'm telling you, the minute I got there, I got in the car, and she goes, where's the donuts? And that's because you have the best donuts ever. We were like, where's that machine going? That's the best donut machine ever. So I thank you. I just had to tell that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Take a nap now.
Okay, we're going to move on to the new library discussion.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Holly Teasel. I'm here from the library, and I'll have to, sorry I won't be talking to you, I have to turn because Brian's got my slideshow, so I don't have it in front of me. So I'm here to talk about our combined park and library project that we've been working on. Go to the next slide. So both the township and library boards have been working together since March, when both boards agreed to work together to realize a multi-use municipal site at 11 Mile and Milford Road. We formed a library park subcommittee, which had representatives from both boards with myself, an architect, and the township engineer, where we worked through lots of different issues and what we were going to do on the site and all the different possibilities that we could offer to the community. And then in June 20th, so just a few weeks ago, there was a special meeting between both boards to discuss the project, so everyone could be at the same meeting to go through all of the issues and ask questions so we could come to hopefully some type of understanding over what that project could potentially be. Go to the next slide. So obviously I really want to talk about the new library. So the new library is a 19,000 square foot facility. It has separate adult, children's, and teen areas with 2 program event spaces. It has multiple private study rooms, and it will have a drive-up book drop and pickup window, which we had always wanted to plan for, but became even more significant with COVID, that people really wanted to be able to pick up and drop off their materials without exiting their car. It has lots of flexible spaces for multiple uses, ample areas for comfortable seating for reading, studying, and meeting, which we are very much lacking in our current facility. It'll have a separate room for Friends of the Library for book sales, and we'll have a separate genealogy and local history room, which is one of our focuses in our collection. So the new library is responsive to feedback that we heard from residents after the 2016 election, where we had a new library on the ballot. We scaled down the size. We looked for more flexibility. It's also responsive to resident input from our 2020 and 2022 community-wide surveys and focus groups, where we asked residents specifically what they wanted in a new library and what would be of best use for them. We're focusing on flexible space to anticipate future uses. focusing on integrated technology throughout the building, and focusing on spaces for community engagement and events. So I realize it's very small on that slide. It's really kind of hard to see the features. I made some color copies, and they are on the table back there if anybody wants to see them, and it's also available on our website. And this shows the layout of the new facility with all the different areas that we will be providing in the library. The layout of the building is reactionary to where we are on the site. So if anybody has any specific questions about the layout, please feel free to contact me at the library. You can go to the next one. So this is the cost estimate with Quinn Evans Architects. That is the architectural firm that we engaged to come up with this conceptual plan. So they have not been engaged for the full-fledged architectural services because that wouldn't be done until after we have a bond for the facility. And the estimates are for $12.5 million for the total project costs. So this, again, impossible to see, and it will change anyway, but this is, we dealt with the municipal bond advisor for the township about how much it could be. At the time, I didn't have the total cost, so it's an estimate at $12 million. And actually, I can't even see that from here because I'm wearing old glasses. But it came in so much lower than what I thought it was going to be with the increased taxable value of the township. And we do have to go back in to add an additional, $500,000, but it's still going to be under $500,000 for the bond. So we were very excited about that. And the average will be probably under 4, throughout the years. So this is the combined costs. This was put together by Leslie Zawada. And so there's lots of different features when it comes to the infrastructure costs of the site that will be shared between the library and the township because this site will be a future township park. So there's, I don't know, Leslie, if you want to, it's your document, so if you wanted to.
No, I'm good. We
Nope,
discussed
all right.
this at the joint meeting and
Okay.
have adjusted it since then, and that's what's in the packet tonight.
Right, so it basically, like when it comes to water and sewage, the parking lot, all of those are shared costs, entry onto the site. So all of those would be shared between the township and the library. And both boards agreed to what the breakdown is on what everyone thought was a fair breakdown of those costs. Go to the next slide. And then this shows this is a conceptual plan again, so nothing's in stone, but that is where the new library would be on the site. And then there's also the entrance would be off of Milford Road. You can go down a little bit, Brian, to show where that would be. So that would be really nice. I know originally when we had discussed this, we didn't think that we could have an entrance off of Milford Road, and this will cut down our costs for the project itself. There's still a walking path with an entrance from down there at 11 Mile for a walking path for access to the site. And it's, and again, this is conceptual. We don't really know what's going to be there in the end, but we've got the ball rolling. So, I'm going to pass the mic.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Chalk, and I'm on the library board. And on behalf of the Lyon Township Public Library Board of Trustees, I request that the Township Board make a motion to make a financial commitment to the share of the infrastructure costs of the 11 Mile and Milford Road Library/Park site if the library passes a millage for a bond for the construction of a new library in November.
Okay. Now you were saying that the millage that you would go for was under 0.5?
Yes.
Under 0.5. That's incredible to me.
That's when we got back. Yeah.
No, I agree. Well, first you have to understand it's a 30-year bond.
So you can go 30 on that?
Well, yes.
Okay.
According to our bond attorney. So, we have legal people that sell the bonds. So, and we have a financial advisor that takes the bonds to market, and then we have a bond attorney who writes all the language so that we're in compliance. So what the library will be asking for is a 30-year bond to build the library. With interest, it's going to be probably $25 million, but you pay that with anything. You buy a fire truck on, it's like a mortgage. So I was absolutely excited, Holly, when I saw how much it came in, but the township has grown, and our financial person prepared that paperwork for Holly, and so that's what it's going to be. So I was shocked. I thought it was going to be a lot more myself.
Yeah, so did we.
Yeah.
I had to ask him a couple times, are you sure?
So
That's what it is.
when you take that, did you do the math to divide it out per household? I mean, what the actual, it would have to be very low.
Yeah, I didn't do that yet because it's not the exact number that we're going to have, because it's going to need to be a little bit more. So I'll create those tables and confer with Patty on what that cost
But
is
an
going to be.
easy way to do it, if somebody in the audience wants to do it, or anybody that's watching us online, it's 1,000 of your taxable value. So if your house is 500,000, half of that you pay taxable value is 250,000. You take 0.50 cents times 250,000, and that would be what you would pay on an annual basis for the library millage, or the library bond millage to support the library.
250, not 250,000. Right?
Yeah.
0.5 times 250, so $125 in that scenario per year.
Correct. Yes, that's roughly, and I'm using just that. If your house is less, it would be less. If your house is more, it would be more. But that's kind of an easy way to judge your own home value and what you would be paying on your taxes. That would always be rolled on your winter tax, because that's our tax bill, is the winter tax bill. And and it would run, I think it said, Holly, I can't remember, 2023, I think it said would start on that chart. So that gives a little more information for the residents, but that's good. And right now, it's kind of a good time to borrow money. We'll see. But
Well, back at the joint meeting that we had, the township agreed to make a commitment of $2.5 million, $2.5 million. And I have no problem making that commitment. And I don't know if anyone else here does or not, but I don't. And if you want a motion, as long as your millage passed,
For the
okay.
infrastructure.
Well, it's the infrastructure part, but that'll also help us get the project moving for the park, which to me is a good thing. So I have no problem if you guys want to make a motion to assure that we're in for that cash.
Sure. John, I'll make a motion to make a financial commitment of $2.5 million and contingent on the millage passage in November for infrastructure improvements associated with the 11 Mile and Milford project site.
I'll support that, subject to you saying up to $2.5 million. If the bids come in less, then we're not going to contribute more than what the pro rata share would be based on the 620
the formula
estimate, right? Yeah. Which does turn, I just want to point out, that this is not part of my amendment motion, but it's a 75-25 share on the drain crossing. The other one had a 95-5 share, so I think that's about $125,000 less the township would pay. But I think that was contemplated in the $2.5 million estimate. So I guess to clarify, it would be
up to not to exceed $2.5 million. Okay, I'll amend the motion.
Okay. Did we get a second on that?
Sean, yes,
yes, that was my friendly amendment.
Yes, and I amend the motion. So you're supposed to second.
I second it again.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go.
Well, I thank you very much. I think this has been a great project that we're putting together, and I really appreciate your support and for the future residents of Lyon Township, because I think this is a huge step towards providing more educational and recreational services for the township.
So-
We'll be back next month with ballot language.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you going to get that back next month?
We'll be back.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to new business. The report on the fire station consolidation and fire department response. It's consideration, I'm sorry. Consolidation.
Good evening again. So back in November, the board approved a look at the future of fire service delivery in EMS, kind of what you guys were talking about earlier. I referred to it as kind of a master plan for the fire department, looking at our growth, our staffing, equipment, and all of those needs, and trying to look out 10 to 20 years as far as what we may be needing as the township grows. And of course, we looked at renovating the 2 existing stations we have, and we found some heavy costs associated with that, but again, that could be explored further. We also looked at possibly adding something to the south end, and this board approved us going forward with at least doing a study and using Redstone Architects, who are the premier architect group in fire station design and construction. So I'm pleased tonight to keep this short on my part, and I'm going to let them do their presentation on looking at the future of fire service delivery. They did an in-depth study on our response times, where we're strong, where we're lacking. So I just wanted to introduce real quick Dan Redstone of Redstone Architects and Tefra Kowalski. We've had numerous meetings, and they've been very helpful. And then from Beckett and Rader is Brian Barrick, who's going to do the most of the presentation. And I'll give an honorable mention to Rowan Brady, who's the computer guru. Come up with the right word for that. So anyway, I'll let Brian do the presentation, and then we can answer questions if there are any at the end. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to come here tonight and give a quick summary of our study efforts. As Chief mentioned, Beckett and Rader is contracted with Redstone Architects as part of the study, specifically for GIS network analysis of run times and station locations.
Thank you. Is that better? Thank you. So to begin with, the township provided us with 10 years worth of emergency calls, which was just short of 12,000 total calls over those 10 years. 305 of those were actual structure fire calls. And if we put those on a map, those 11,800 calls are located on the left, the blue shading indicates the higher frequency or higher location areas for those fire calls. You can see that they are clustered in the northwest quadrant, the central west, and the southwest. Those are the locations with the highest number of calls, both for overall calls as well as 111 code structure fires. So we took this existing data, and I might also mention at this point that all of these calls, these 11,800 calls, are historic calls. We have actual addresses, we have actual locations, and actual reasons for the calls. So our analysis is based on these 10 years of historic calls, but we also want to look towards the future, and looking at the township master plan as well as developments that are planned in the near future. We know that the southern portion of the township and the eastern edge of the township have the highest potential for future development. So we're also taking that into consideration on how that impacts our response times. So as we're looking at response times, I should mention that we are referring to the National Fire Protection Association standards, specifically their 1710 code. And we are focusing in on travel time. So we're not looking at alarm time right now or turnout time. We're looking at travel time from when a response vehicle physically leaves the station to when they arrive on scene. And for that travel time, we use some fairly sophisticated modeling software that allows us to alter a lot of different variables. So with this software, we're allowing vehicles to travel 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. They are allowed to stop and then move through traffic signals. And then we have also selected a various number of movements that those vehicles can make. For example, they can make U-turns at all intersections. Use of private roads are allowed. So essentially allowing the emergency vehicles to override standard traffic protocols. We have also taken into account traffic congestion. So we specifically modeled Monday afternoons at rush hour, which, according to the Esri traffic database, was the worst case scenario for Lyon Township. So with that information, we modeled response time for your existing 2 stations. And what we're specifically looking at for the NFPA standard is the 4-minute response, and which is the sort of the third column over on the graph, and we're looking for that 4-minute response to exceed 90%, which means that over 90% of the calls have a response time of less than 4 minutes. So with the existing condition, with the 2 stations, you can see that that call percentage is 82.5%, a little bit less than 90. So we worked with the chief to develop a list of potential station sites to analyze, and with that we came up with 6 different scenarios with various combinations of utilizing the existing station sites as well as various potential new station sites. And I should mention that when we say 2 existing stations in this analysis, we're not necessarily talking about the actual existing building, but more the site. So eventually there could be a remodeled station or a new building on the same site. So to quickly run through these, and then we'll have a summary. No, sorry, no, go ahead. Thank you. We'll quickly run through the 6 scenarios so that you can see the heat mapping. The darker colors are the shorter response times, the lighter colors are the longer response times, and then again, take a look at the 4-minute graph. So we'll run through these real quickly, and then at the end we'll highlight the 3 scenarios that we feel are most viable. So this one uses the 2 existing station sites and adds a new station in the southeast corner of the township at 9 Mile and Chubb. That gets us to 86.5% 4-minute response time. Scenario 2 utilizes 3 new stations, one on the far southwest corner, one in the northeast corner, and then one more centrally located. And you can see with this 3-station scenario, it actually reduces the response percentage by a little bit to an even 80%. Scenario 3 moves us to a 4-station system, looking again at the far southwest, far southeast, a northeast, and then a central station. This gets us much, much closer to the 90%, up to 88.7%. This one is a slight variation where we have a 3-station system within Lyon Township, but then also took the liberty of modeling South Lyon's existing station as a automatic aid agency. So with this, while the township has 3 stations under its direct control in function, there are 4 stations, and then this gets us to 88.4%. Scenario 5, another variation of 4 stations, this one using the 2 existing station sites and 2 new stations, one on the southwest, one on the southeast. This does put us up over 90% to 93.2. And the last scenario, scenario 6, looking at the existing Grand River Station site and then 3 new stations, and this gets us to 87.2. So there are a lot of different variables that went into those 6 scenarios. So if you go to the next slide, there's a little summary chart of the percentages for the existing conditions in all 6 scenarios. But at this point, I'll highlight 3 scenarios that give, I think, some decision points or some basis of information for the township to make future decisions. We'll take a look at a 3-station system and a 4-station system, and obviously response times are not the only factor that goes into a decision, but also staffing and operational concerns. So this is one piece of the puzzle. If the township were to desire to go to a 3-station system, scenario 1 provides the most effective arrangement of those potential system sites, which is essentially the 2 existing station sites plus a new station at 9 Mile and Chubb in the southeast quadrant, which gets to 86.5%. And earlier I mentioned future development. So all of these numbers are based upon the 10 years of historic data. Now, we know that the highest potential for future development, residential development that is along the south edge and the east edge of the township. So in this scenario with a new station at 9 Mile and Chubb, that provides an enhanced area of 4-minute call response in that southeast quadrant of the township. So moving forward, as more development happens in that area and the number of calls increase in that area, that will cause that percentage, that 86.5%, to trend upward. This is the variation where we have 3 stations within the township's direct control, and then looking to formalize some sort of agreement with South Lyon to functionally have 4 stations. And again, this one is at 88.4% with a station in that southeast quadrant. So as more development happens in that area, that overall percentage will trend upward. And the final scenario with the greatest potential, if the township wishes to go to a 4-station system, this utilizes the 2 existing station sites and then adds 2 additional stations, one near the Lockwood Senior Center in the southwest corner, and then 9 Mile and Chubb in the southeast corner. And this, just based on the historic data, puts it over 90%. And then again, as additional development happens along the south edge and the east edge of the township, that percentage will trend upward as well. So that's the brief overview of what we've accomplished. I know you have a very full agenda tonight, so we'll keep that brief, but we're happy to field any questions that you might have.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. That's well done. It's a lot of stuff to digest here. So, yeah, please open it up. Anybody have any questions? Or do we want to think through this thing?
I want to look at it.
I mean, do you have any questions that might help you through the...
Got one, just to clarify, I guess, when you say it's, the percent of calls, so is this just like actual, like every time a person called, not incidents? So it's possible that, if somebody had a fire over here and 3 neighbors called, does that register as 3 calls in your data set?
No, it would be per incident. Yeah.
I think it's important to note that these aren't actual response times. These are run times from a geographic location, because as we start talking about growing the number of stations, we start thinking about staffing.
Correct.
The time out the door and what that looks like.
Correct. Yeah. So this is actual travel time from point A to point B. The NFPA allowable alarm time and turnout time would be above and beyond this 4-minute time frame that we're talking about here tonight. Yep.
Okay. We can have some time to look through this and any questions, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. We're happy to answer any follow-up questions that you all might have. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for this.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the next 2 items. I'm going to turn this over to the treasurer to run the next 2 items. I'd like to recuse myself from them because of pending litigation.
Make a motion to allow the supervisor to recuse himself from new business items B and C.
I'll support.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, sorry. Thanks, John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
We'll get you when we're done. We will. All right, Carol, can we put these 2 together?
Yeah, I think we can include
Okay.
them together because we have one memo on it.
These are the consideration of approval of a resolution number 2022-20 granting speculative building status for 30180 Research Drive and speculative building 55285 Lion Industrial Drive.
Let's start with Amy.
Amy?
The DDA Economic Restructuring Committee met on June 21st to review the submitted applications. We want to stress that receiving a tax abatement is a privilege, not a right. As such, the decision to approve a request should be based on the analysis of expected cost and the benefits of the proposed project. As this specific request is for a speculative building status and an occupant is not known at this time, the committee was not able to determine a specific impact on this proposal in terms of job creation, quality, or if it would qualify as an emerging sector of development in Oakland County. The committee utilized a scoring card that was previously used for tax abatements. And based on the points awarded for 30180 Research Drive, we scored that at 55 points. And 55285 Lion Industrial Drive scored as 60 points in total. For our previous tax abatement policy, anybody scoring below 99 or less was not eligible for an abatement. We do understand that this application is not specifically for an abatement, but speculative status. However, currently the DDA is financially committed to repaying bonds for previous infrastructure projects that encompass approximately 50% of our annual revenue. The DDA also has upcoming projects that focus on infrastructure, stormwater retention, sidewalk connections, and parking lot development. All of these projects will not be able to be undertaken if we continue to lose additional revenue in the TIF dollars. The DDA is also facing the possible expiration of our TIF agreement with Oakland County. Previous abatements were supported to help recruit interest in our industrial facilities area. However, space has become limited in that district over the last 10 years. limited parcels are left that are large enough to home industrial companies. And we're also experiencing negative impacts of all of the industrial companies coming in. Infrastructure along major corridors such as Grand River and Milford Road is deteriorating and pose safety concerns for the public. The increase in population requires the township to expand current public safety departments, both with additional staffing and increasing in safety vehicles and equipment. We believe that it's in the best interest for the township to address these concerns before committing tax dollars to help recruit additional developments to the township. On April 4th, 2022, Resolution 2022-09 was passed by the Township Board prohibiting further tax abatements. As the applications in front of you tonight are located in previously established IDDs, it's required that the board accept and consider these applications. However, due to the many factors referenced in the included memo, the DDA Economic Restructuring Committee at this time does not see enough of a benefit to the community to warrant making an exemption to the previously passed resolution and recommends denial of both resolutions for speculative building status.
Thank you, Amy. Please, applicant. Sorry, I'm not. This is not my job. It's always about the money.
No problem. Maria Lukasavich from GSL Holdings. I would like to bring it to the board's attention that GSL Holdings originally submitted these applications back in August of 2021, prior to the April of 22 meeting. Those applications were never processed due to pending litigation. When we reached out to the township to transfer them to speculative building status, that dialogue fell on deaf ears. Back in March of 2022, we submitted new applications to the township for the speculative building status. Those applications weren't timely reviewed or processed. When we reached out to the clerk, Ms. Cash, and asked about the status of our reviews, we were told that we would be put on this meeting's agenda, this board's agenda. So there is some concern on our part with the process of this application that I would like to bring to your attention. We understand the township's concerns about infrastructure and safety. However, these are two of the last parcels in the Lyon Township Industrial Center industrial development. They front I-96. I think it's in the township's best interest to attract business to occupy these buildings. Lyon 20 is a 71,000 square foot facility that, for marketability's point of view, we have to remain competitive on not only a local but state and national, if not global level. So I think any incentives that the township's able to offer is in the township's best interest. Lyon 8, the parcel on Research Drive, that's a 43,000 square foot building. We're wrapping up engineering with that. I think we'll probably get a pre-con here shortly. Wrapping up a few minor requirements there. But having two industrial buildings potentially sitting vacant because they can't stay competitive on a state, local, national, global stage is, I'll say, in my opinion, not in the township's best interest. With respect to the speculative building status, the township still preserves the right to look at each individual application when an occupant becomes available. This does not grant us, the developer, any tax relief right now. The board still preserves the right and I want to stress that, to review each and every applicant, including what Mr. Enlow was speaking of earlier. Electric car manufacturers, different type of industrial users. I think it's in the township's best interest to grant the speculative building status and review applications on a case-by-case basis. It only gives us the opportunity to market these buildings as speculative building status. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
I just want to make one comment, Patty. And Maria, I don't want to argue with you, okay? I'm not going to argue with you about what happened or what the sequence was leading up to you being here tonight. I'm just going to say that I don't agree with the way that you presented it. Okay? So I just leave it at that.
Any more comments?
Well, I went through this all, and obviously we had a great discussion here a couple of months ago about the whole issue of tax abatements and whether or not they were warranted, needed, necessary at this stage. I mean, we're having a hard time. I don't want to. Well, the applicants still come through the door even when they're not getting tax abatements, so it doesn't seem like it's necessary anymore. I guess in light of that, I'll make a motion that the application for speculative building status under Act 198 of 1974 for both the properties that are being proposed tonight, which are requested tonight, which are 30180 Research Drive and 55285 Lion Industrial Drive, be denied. And I'm going to give a few reasons. First, I agree with all the comments and reasons stated by the DDA director in her memo and the scoring of this proposal by the Economic Restructuring Committee, which both support a denial of the application, as Amy touched on. Secondly, the applicant is undoubtedly aware of the enormous amount of development that has occurred in the township in the recent years, which I just mentioned and was part of our discussion a couple of months ago, and the developments that are currently underway and the developments that are in the planning phases. And it's an enviable position to be in, but one that places great demand on the township's resources. We simply can't afford to forego these tax dollars with all the developments in play. And at least for the present time, there's no reason to abate taxes to incentivize more development. Again, there's a line of folks at the door. Third, the applicant is probably aware that this board, again, had a long and drawn-out discussion over the whole topic of tax abatements and brownfield credits earlier this year, and we ultimately decided not to grant any more of them in any form. I understand that these properties are in established industrial development districts, and because of that, we have carefully considered this request on its own merits, and Amy's got a pretty thorough review together for us tonight. In view of everything that's been said, at the time, the board adopted the resolution, which we've again talked about, 2022-09, prohibiting further tax abatements, and the reasons I've already stated. I just believe that it would be misleading to a prospective tenant if this body were to grant speculative building status if we don't intend to move ahead with an industrial facilities exemption. So I think we should be consistent and transparent. So for all those reasons, I'm making this motion.
Well, I'll support, because I'm a big advocate of, I don't want to give away any more of our money, and that's exactly what I said when we had this big discussion of the finances, especially in the DDA. And they're saving their dollars for major road, the last leg of the ring road, and they need that money. So I thought I made my case very well at the time. So we'll call the question. Go ahead.
Robert Swain.
Sorry, the motion is to deny. Okay, so aye. Sorry.
Christopher Moore.
Yes.
Michelle Cash.
Yes.
Sean O'Neill.
Yes.
Lisa Blades.
Yes.
Patricia Kirkconnell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ken, since you were there, would you mind getting John for us to bring him back to the meeting? Would you mind getting John for us? I saw you standing there a minute ago, so let me call him. He'll come. He'll get him.
So we move to
the next is we're gonna next on the agenda is the Coyote Plan Development Conceptual Review. So Brian, do you want to start that off? While John's coming back.
I will. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up for discussion tonight is a conceptual review of a proposed plan development, residential plan development, on the site that is currently Coyote Golf Course on the east side of Milford Road. And you're not seeing the plans up there? Sorry about that. I was trying, and then I've screwed up technology. So I'm supposed to be the guru here, and I'm
You
failing
are the
miserably.
guru.
Okay, here we are. The developers have a presentation as well, but I will be using the cover page from the site plan packet for purposes of my portion of the presentation this evening. The proposal in front of us for consideration includes 107 townhomes in 26 buildings, 120 single-family homes on lots sized 70 feet by 135 feet. I'm sorry, I'll start over. The townhomes are on the northern portion of the property, which is where the existing clubhouse is today, with Walbridge's vacant industrial properties to the north, 12 mile to the south of the site, and then the western edge is Milford Road. Those 120 single-family homes are right in the middle, and then 83 single-family homes on lots sized 90 by 150 feet. Those are the southern properties that are the southern lots on the plans here, if you can follow my cursor. The developers are also proposing in concept to donate either the clubhouse and the surrounding areas to the township for some public use. And also worthy of noting that the southwest corner of the property remains vacant as part of the site plan and could potentially be used as well. As with any plan development, this process is 3 steps. In each one of the steps, both the Planning Commission and the Township Board review the project. The Planning Commission has reviewed the concept at a meeting, as Patty mentioned in the reports, and their general comments, and you can always go back to the minutes if you would like to see them specifically, but their general concerns related to overall project density, that the higher density single-family lots in the middle of the project and the townhome units were too close to one another, that there weren't enough separation between the physical homes themselves or physical structures themselves, and that traffic generated on Milford Road would cause concern in the future. I mentioned the surrounding land uses to the north being Walbridge, to the south being 12 Mile Road, and on the south side of 12 Mile Road are single-family homes zoned either R0.3 or R1.0. The lots to the east are R1.0 as well, zoned 1 acre, and to the west of Milford Road is Mill River, so that includes Abbey Park and all of the homes in the Mill River subdivision. With that background, we do have some criteria for eligibility for a plan development, of which Coyote meets all of them. We have a list of benefits as seen from the developer's point of view that is included in the application, but I want to specifically mention we require 40 acres for a minimum size for a plan development, which this property exceeds. It's just over 200 acres in size. We are to consider public services, and as it's proposed, this would have public water and public sewer for this project. And then in terms of roads, we do have a traffic study that was submitted to the township that will be reviewed by GHD. If Leslie wants to go into any detail on that, she can, but But the traffic study proposes left turn passing lanes at each of the 3 driveways along Milford Road. And it includes 2 right turn tapers at Mill River Boulevard, the south driveway, and Abbey Lane, the middle driveway. So these 2 would include a right-hand turn taper. In terms of compatibility with the master plan, this is one that we constantly consider, and we spend a lot of time focusing on density of a project. The parallel plan for this site, as you can see, there's a lot of water, a lot of wetlands on the site. 161 units are shown on the parallel plan for the project. And so we calculated that out as an overall project density of 1.6 units per acre. But it's nearly twice the permitted twice the permitted units as called for on that parallel plan. So the total of 310 units is nearly double the 161 units that the parallel plan provides for. Now, along the same front, I think it's worth pointing out that at the Planning Commission level, we're still in draft talks for the master plan, but we've revisited the map, the master plan map, the future land use map for the project, and we've talked about providing a transition, a buffer from the Walbridge Industrial Park to the north, and some of our more protected 1 acre zonings to the south and to the east. And so one of the things that we talked about on that master plan is having a more dense buffer along the northern portion of the Coyote property, some form of multiple family housing or a denser single family product that would provide a transition from what are going to be large industrial buildings on the property directly to the north, and leaving some separation between single family homes on the remainder of this property. So we've not arrived at a specific number of units or the size of that transition area on this property, so that's worth noting, but it is a concept that we're supportive of as this project goes through this process. And I just want to be clear, the concept is what we're supportive of. The density, obviously, we want this body to comment on as we move forward, and the same with the Planning Commission at a public hearing in the future. The project retains nearly 90 acres of open space, which is pretty significant on a property this size. It exceeds our minimum open space requirements, which are 20% for a planned development. So they're doing what we're asking them to do in terms of open space preservation. As you can see, a fair amount of the wooded holes on the eastern portion of the golf course will be preserved because they have no lots on them. There's a pretty significant buffer, about 200 feet on the western property line from the road right-of-way, and again 200 feet from the 12-mile right-of-way as well. So there's going to be a lot of separation between the road and residential units as part of this proposal. And I mentioned a little bit the amount of wetlands that are on the property today. A large portion of them and our 25-foot wetland buffer is considered and built into the design here. So those wetland structures are largely going to remain as they sit today. There's not a lot of fill that is proposed as part of this project, at least in concept. Of course, that would be determined at detailed engineering. So I mentioned the overall density of the project, but one of the ordinance criteria is to talk about permitted uses. Our zoning ordinance right now allows for single-family units and, in some capacity, duplex units in the R10 zoning district. So the inclusion of townhomes would be a slight departure from those permitted uses. Again, the Planning Commission and my planning background says a transitional buffer of something like townhomes or duplexes is likely appropriate and probably desirable. What we don't want to get ourselves into is a situation where we have, maybe a 300,000 square foot distribution center on properties to the north, and then single-family homes directly abutting them on this northern boundary. So, again, we're supportive of that concept. I mentioned the Planning Commission was concerned a bit about the separation of buildings in the center portion of the property for single-family homes. Those setbacks would be 20 feet total between homes. Our plan development ordinance requires 30 feet separation between structures. And then the same thing for the townhome units. The request from the Planning Commission or suggestion was to separate those buildings a bit further as well. Our ordinance requires sidewalks and bike paths along major road frontages, and they are proposed with this development along the entire frontage of Milford Road and the entire frontage of 12 Mile Road. So that would be in compliance with our ordinance. Then there's also a 5-foot wide sidewalk network that is proposed along all of the interior streets of this project as well. We don't get into a landscape plan at this point in the review. However, I mentioned the significant buffer yards from all of the roads and from the adjacent properties to the east. One thing I did not note was the buffer that is proposed, or the berm that is proposed between the townhomes and the northern property line. That would be planted as well. Obviously, we'll get into compliance with our buffer yard standards for landscaping when it comes time for preliminary review, but there's more than adequate space to meet all of our requirements there. I will leave you with the 3 concerns that I think are most notable that I'd like feedback from the Township Board on. First being the overall project density, second being traffic impact on Milford Road, and third being the building separation on those middle single-family lots and the separation between buildings of the townhomes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Leslie, you have anything to add to this? Go ahead.
Thanks. I'd like to reference our June 28th review letter, which is in your packet. Under the general, I did not receive, at least not to my knowledge, a copy of the parallel plan. So our first item is that the parallel plan was not included in the submittal, and it should be noted that a parallel plan should include the accurate sizing of stormwater management basins. So I can't confirm that tonight, and if I missed that, then I apologize to the applicant, but I have not seen that. Road improvements and traffic study. Under the previous application for the development of this project, a traffic study was prepared and submitted in 2019. Under this new application, a traffic study has been prepared by Fishbeck and will be forwarded to GHD, who's our traffic consultant, for their review, and that review has not been completed yet. As Brian mentioned, the concept plan shows limited road improvements, only taper lanes at the entrances on Milford Road, and the updated traffic study may result in the requirement of more significant changes to improvements to Milford Road, but that will get vetted out in the process. Also, the concept plans do not indicate the intent to pave 12 Mile Road. However, it is a requirement of the zoning ordinance that all planned developments frontages be paved, and the applicant's representatives have verbally informed us that they are aware of this requirement. And we also recommend that the applicant discuss the road entrances and improvements with Road Commission early in the process, especially the 3 entrances that are proposed. And then under stormwater management, if this project moves forward to a preliminary PD submittal, the applicant will be required to show that this meets the new county standards, which may affect layout of the development and where the ponds are placed, because infiltration is a requirement in the new ordinance. So really what we're seeing now is the stormwater is kind of dictating the layout, and it's different than how things have been done in the past. Sanitary sewer, as part of this application, we were requested to, or what we did is we reviewed the downstream sewer capacity. So to accommodate this development with sanitary sewer, they would be required to build off-site gravity sewer from this development to the southwest along 12 Mile, the diagonal portion to Spalding Road. That's where this is master planned to go. And the applicant is aware of that. As part of the sewer design for Spalding Road, it was designed using 160 RVUs for this parcel. We did review the downstream sanitary sewer. It does have the capacity to serve an increased number of units if the Planning Commission and Township Board are satisfied with the conceptual and preliminary site plan. However, I want to make a point that sewer capacity should not be the basis for any density increase for any project, but technically it does work and there is capacity there. And that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions for Leslie this time? Okay, the applicants are here, so let's go ahead and bring them on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Paul LeBlanc from PLB Planning Group in Grand Rapids. I assume you'll be my clicker?
I will.
Okay. This is our first chance to present in front of the Township Board, but we already have been in front of the Planning Commission twice now. In March, we came to the Planning Commission with a pre-application presentation, and based on the comments that we received at that meeting, we made a number of substantive changes to the plan, which is the plan that they saw last month and the plan that I'll talk to you about tonight. So with that, we put together a project team which represents a number of professional specialties to address all elements of the proposed development. Some of the members of the team are here tonight. In the event that you do have specific questions, we'll do our best to address them tonight. So some of the project specifics, Brian has touched on a lot of them, but I wanted to go into a little more detail on a lot of these things. It's a residential plan development with 3 different components. Large lot, single family, medium lot, single family, and then the townhomes as a buffer along the northern boundary of the property. The overall density of the project would be 1.61 units per acre. A number of amenities. Again, Brian touched on the current clubhouse. The thought there is that the developer is willing to work with the township if that's something the township might be interested in as a community center or some other kind of public facility. The developer has expressed an interest in conveying the clubhouse and the land around it for that kind of a public use. If that were not to happen, then we'd want to look at whether we'd retain the clubhouse for use by the residents of the development as maybe a community center for the residents or something of that nature. Also, in the upper left-hand corner, we're proposing a dog park. Again, the intent is probably as an amenity for the residents, but if the township were to take over the clubhouse and the surrounding property, it could very well be a dog park for the community. We're also showing a number of pathways interior to the site so that residents would have access through the open space areas as well as connectivity with other residential components of the project. And then you can see in the green the substantial open space throughout the development. All of the site would be served by public water and sanitary sewer.
It's going a lot faster on my computer.
I'll slow down. As has been mentioned, we have done a traffic study. The traffic study outlined a number of improvements that need to be made at the entry points or the ingress-egress points to the project. The developer has agreed to do those. We'll certainly wait to hear the township engineer's review of the traffic study and look at any other improvements that may be suggested. And part of that, I'm sorry, we showed the paving of 12 Mile Road along the southern boundary of the project as well. We've done a fiscal impact analysis. The results of that showed a positive net impact on the township. We expect that that will probably be updated as the project moves forward and is refined. As mentioned earlier, 46%, almost 50% of the site would be preserved as open space. That's almost 90 acres out of the 200-acre site. And then in terms of price points, again, that's something that at this point is sort of a best guess. With the economy being what it is, it's a moving target. But single-family homes ranging from $450,000 to $650,000, and the townhomes $350,000 to $450,000. So a fairly substantial investment in the community. And then compatibility, and this is something that Brian talked about in terms of transitional land use and things the Planning Commission is considering now as they review the existing master plan. The site has been designed to provide for a transitional development pattern. We recognize that on the south side of 12 Mile Road, we have large lot single-family residential. On the north end of the site, we have a substantial industrial development. West of the site, we have a large mixed-use, sort of medium-density development. And then to the east of the site, a combination of large lot, single-family, and some non-residential uses. So the idea there is to put the large lot, single-family on the south end of the site, comprising nearly half of the total site, 46.3% of the site, with a net density of less than 1 unit per acre. Then in the interior of the site, the smaller lot or medium-sized lot, single-family residential, comprising over a third of the site with an overall density of 1.6 units per acre. And then the townhome development in the northern band, about 15% of the site with a density of 3.6 units per acre. Even from a townhouse standpoint, that's pretty low density. Typically in a townhouse development, they're going to range from 6 to 8 units per acre. But because of the other things going on there, we're just using townhomes as a transitional use and a buffer between the single-family portion of the site and the industrial. Now, density has come up as a concern. No. What I wanted to show here is 84.7% of the site, 85% of the site would be devoted to single-family residential development. The density on that single-family development area is 1.24 units per acre. So it's actually consistent with the current residential A master plan designation. Where we get into the higher density is by adding the townhome development on the northern 15%. But overall, the single-family homes are consistent with your 1.25 units per acre. Right now, the project schedule is stretched out over about a 6-year period. Again, this is likely to change depending on a number of variables, but the project would be divided into 3 phases and beginning hopefully in 2003.
23.
So we recognize that 2023. We recognize that in order to get increased density, we have to demonstrate that this project provides both public benefits and excellent design. And your ordinance identifies a number of things that fall into those categories. So I wanted to highlight some of those as well. First of all, the open space and natural features preservation. Again, nearly 50% of the site committed to open space. Potential clubhouse use, again, that's up in the air, but a lot depends on whether the township wants to utilize that facility or not. Pathway connection along Milford Road to eventually tie into pathway along Milford and tying into the Huron Valley system. 12-mile road would be paved. The improvements on Milford, as we've identified in the traffic study. And then Brian mentioned as well the southwest corner of the site, whether it's conveyed to the township or retained as part of the development, would be retained as open space. But we looked at that and thought, well, it's a highly visible corner. There may be an interest on the part of the township to have that land as a pocket park or some kind of public use for the benefit of the surrounding neighborhood. So that's certainly a possibility. So in terms of design excellence, there are buffers around the entire site. And Brian touched on this. The minimum buffer is 200 feet on the south, east, and west, but the buffer goes as much as 800 feet in that southwest corner. So you can see, especially on the east side of the site, which is really the only heavily wooded portion of the property, the buffer is substantially more than just 200 feet, and those wooded areas would pretty much be preserved. One of the comments the Planning Commission brought up when we had our pre-application meeting back in March was a desire to retain as much of a view shed along Milford Road as possible, that we didn't want development right up to the road and just seeing rooftops. So in addition to the 200-foot separation along Milford Road, we're proposing to add a number of berms, which would be landscaped, and enhance the existing wooded area along Milford with other trees as necessary to make sure that that edge retains more of a natural character and is given an appropriate look. Tree preservation I mentioned along the east boundary. One of the factors in the PD ordinance is curvilinear street pattern, and certainly that's the case with the layout here. And then every unit in the development, townhomes as well as single-family homes, would abut open space. So there are no backyards abutting backyards. Everybody is backing up onto open space. And then again, the concept of transition, you can see by the illustration, We're going from large lot residential on the south to light industrial on the north, and what's going on the west and east sides, and how we step from large lot residential to medium to the townhomes. It's a classic land use transitional pattern. So in terms of the master plan recognized way back when that Coyote Golf Course was had the potential of being redeveloped. That trend has been witnessed all over the country, and the master plan identified that as a potential and noted that residential land use was the likely option. It recommended low-density, single-family residential A. As I indicated, the single-family portion of this project is within that 1.25 units per acre. The master plan notes that there's a demonstrated need for more residential in the community. Again, the master plan talks about transition and actually notes that, to paraphrase here, and I don't mean to be too harsh, but it essentially says the township hasn't done a real good job of following transitional land use planning, and that more of that is needed. And I think this site is a textbook example of how transitional planning can work. And then the plan talks about, and this was in reference to the mixed-use development on the Wallbridge property, but indicating that such a development would complement Mill River and provide a mix of other residential. So the same, even though the Wallbridge site now is not going to be residential, the same concept applies to the Coyote site. And the master plan also talks about the need for more rooftops in the area to help support commercial development in New Hudson. And we recognize that we're about a mile from the commercial district, but we also recognize that with the pathway along Milford Road, if people are less likely to walk, biking is certainly an option, and maybe a preferable option to getting in your car and going out on Milford Road and driving to the store. So we think this project, with the additional homes, does provide support for New Hudson businesses. And then lastly, a statement out of the master plan regarding if the property were designated as R1B or residential B, this would be the equivalent of R10 zoning with utilities. And we have R10 zoning with utilities, and I'll talk to you in a minute about why we think residential B is a more appropriate designation in the updated master plan than residential A. So here's, oh, you stole my thunder. Gee.
Nobody saw it.
Here's the current plan, and it's obviously showing Coyote Golf Course as residential A, and it's showing the adjoining Wallbridge site as mixed residential. That was approved for high-density development at 12 units per acre, but we now know that that isn't going to happen, and and the reality is that the Wallbridge site will not be residential, it will be industrial. In fact, it's already underway as industrial. So that's a significant change in conditions that we feel warrants a reconsideration of the master plan designation for the Coyote Golf Course site. So why not residential A? Well, one of the statements out of the master plan says that residential development would be compatible with the existing surrounding residential to the east and south, as well as the proposed residential to the north. So that statement was referring to the Coyote Golf Course, saying that the residential A designation makes sense because it would be adjacent to residential on the north as well as the east and south. But that is not the case. So why not zoning as R 1.0? Well, that's a purpose statement out of the R 1.0 zoning district. Next. And the purpose statement talks about residential and agriculture in that district. It talks about rural character, an ex-urban lifestyle, estate living lifestyle. If you look at the map, this site is really part of the urban core of Lyon Township. It's now next to a huge industrial area. It's across the street from a large mixed-use development. You can see on the west side of the Huron Valley Trail, that greenish color is residential B. So the purpose of R 1.0 really is no longer valid on the Coyote site. Also, public services are available, and one of the statements in the R 1.0 purpose statement is for areas where residents may not have access to full services. That's not the case here. And then lastly, if you look at the uses allowed by right within the R1 district, single family is one of them, but most of the other uses relate to rural agricultural kinds of land uses, which are clearly not appropriate any longer in this location. So we are asking and will be asking the Planning Commission to consider changing the land use designation on the updated plan to residential B, which, if done, then density is no longer an issue, because residential B would allow 2 units per acre, whereas at most we're asking for 1.6, so well within that range. Any questions?
Okay, hang on. All right, I'm going to open it up to the board to go ahead and ask questions. Anyone here would like to start? Chris, got anything you want to?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know if it's more comments and questions, but I'll kind of go through some things I do like and some things I don't like. I guess I agree with the transition idea of having some sort of buffer, not just single-family homes right up against the Wallbridge units. I do believe that is sound planning there. I like the pathways that are, they're required under PD. So you have those at Milford, you have those along 12 Mile as well. The internal pathway network is nice as well. I will, if this were to continue with that provision, I want to make sure those actually get built. We've had a couple developments where those were removed at the 11th hour or during construction. The amount of open space is very high. I'm gonna pick on Sean's neighborhood with the open space issue, but when you do have a thin strip of open space between 2 backyards, it tends to get eaten up by the homeowners, and it's really not open space. So I know you would never.
Water. I haven't put anything back there.
I know you would never do that, but I know a couple things that Brian, you had mentioned that we should probably touch on were the clubhouse option. I guess I don't have a strong feeling either way. When I first looked at it, my first thought was, again, picking on your neighborhood, that it would be something as an asset to the future homeowners association there for that development, because it does have a pool and a clubhouse. So we have a couple of those in the township already. I did actually have dog park written down. I know we have one already at Lion Oaks. I don't know if that's something the township wants to get into or not. I don't really have a strong feeling either way on that. And Brian had mentioned the setbacks, the 30 feet versus 20 feet. That would be nice to keep those spaced out. And the traffic concerns along Milford Road, it's gotten worse over the years, of course, and then adding an additional 310 units isn't going to help things. So I guess we'll just wait on the traffic report and review on that and see what improvements will be needed. And again, probably the biggest concern I have is just the overall density still as a whole. You do make a compelling argument about residential B versus residential A. I know when we had looked at that master plan, I think actually three of us might have been on, names are on that master plan that are sitting up here now. And that was it was discussed back in 2012 in the amendment. And I know I voted against the development just north of that for various reasons, and one of which was it was by the industrial park. So it wasn't as good of a transitional use as what you're presenting here. So the density is probably the biggest concern. 310 units total when we have allocated 161 on the parallel plan and 160 sewer taps. And I still have this lingering fear down the road that we are going to run out of sewer capacity. So if you are asking for more, this is a planned development. There's supposed to be community benefits, improvements to the sewer treatment plan or the beds is another route that could be pursued as a community benefit. Traffic wise, we're trying to build that last piece of the ring road. Any assistance with that, it may be part of your traffic mitigation strategy. So I think I touched on everything I had written down, so I'll let somebody else speak.
Okay. Sean, you want to go?
I would echo a lot of the things Chris has already said. I had one question. The 10 acres that's called out as the area that would be potentially included with the clubhouse for township use, is that factored into the density? Have you already removed?
At this point, it is.
So I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, at this point it is not. It's part of the overall site.
Okay, so it has not been taken out. So if it was to be, okay, and I don't know what, that's sort of a newer idea. I don't know what we'd use it for. That would have to be discussed, and I don't know that we'd certainly need 10 acres along with it. But obviously the parking lot area probably comprises majority the footprint of the building, and the parking lot area comprises the majority
I think that came up at the Planning Commission meeting, that there was some question about how large an area would this be? Would it include accessory buildings and parking and all that? At this point, we don't have a good answer. It's likely that it's somewhere between 7 and 10 acres, depending on if the township wants it and what configuration that might take.
Your point on the point on transition, transition planning makes sense. That it should be done that way to some extent. Just to what extent is really the question that's here tonight. The view shed or view corridor along the roads is important. 200 feet was a number that's your minimum. It's much higher, I guess, at the southwest corner and at the far east side, and you're leaving a lot of those mature woods, which would buffer you from the neighbors to your east. We're getting ready to and I guess I'll ask Brian, in the discussions, in your update of the master plan currently, has there been much discussion yet about, this parcel and A versus B? I mean, how have you looked at this? Has the planning commission discussed it? How did they maybe process some of that, given that they've been working on the master plan when these folks were in front of them last month?
Yeah, if you'll humor me for 1 second, I can bring up the draft that they have looked at. I mean, the way that I'm going about this is still that the majority of the parcel is single-family A. And I think the Planning Commission felt similarly, simply because of all of the surrounding large lot, single-family residential. It makes a lot more sense to us to keep it there, but the supporting piece on a development like this is, we said it makes sense to have a lot higher density at the northern portion. Not considering any of our single-family residential options, B, C, or D, but changing that to a multifamily designation or attached single-family. So that's what we're looking at right here, Sean, is...
So you've looked at our current, you've implemented, in your review, you've included our current standards and our current master plan.
Correct.
But I think, given the fact that we're kind of coming down the home stretch in these next few months on our master plan update, it seems like we should take a look at this through that lens. Because, and Chris touched on it, I think that, I don't know that anyone up here would disagree that at least the top strip of this should be multiple family to some extent, in order to achieve the planning goals that Paul has talked about tonight. So that would just, and I don't have a number, I don't have a number of acreage or acres, I don't have a number of front feet, but I think that would be something that I would ask, you and the planning commission maybe if they're going to continue forward to really look at and compare to the proposed master plan, because it is inconsistent by the numbers right now with our current master plan. It will be more consistent, I would assume, when applying the expected designation to that northerly strip of land. And I think that'll probably give us a true measure of how, I don't want to use the term lopsided, but how off the mark maybe the density is, at least for starters.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. We've not had, I think the Planning Commission, and Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty aligned with that concept too. Really, to me, the only question is how big is that transition strip and what does that do for our overall density? Does it put them closer to 200 units as a parallel plan, or is it 280 units? I just don't know what that exact number is yet.
We had a long discussion about that.
Well, I was going to say the area they're proposing by acreage or by depth moving from north to south from that line is not vast. I mean, it's fairly compact. It doesn't seem unreasonable. I haven't really done all the math on it, but it seems to be, not even maybe 30% of the site at best.
15 per Paul's graphic.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, you did the math.
Yeah,
well, I guess it depends where you draw the line, but I guess you're drawing it near the back of those houses that are to the south. Okay, but yeah, go ahead, Paul.
If I'm understanding what Brian is saying, what we're proposing would conform to that concept. Because even if you left the bulk of the site as residential A, as I showed in the next slide, all of the single family occupies 85% of the site at a density of 1.24 units per acre. So that is residential A density. So if the master plan leaves that the way it is and shows multifamily or high density along the north, then we're well within what's being proposed.
And that's really what I'm asking him and maybe the Planning Commission to look at as they work on them, separate from your project, as I consider this and various other areas of the township, approving or tweaking the existing to approve the new master plan. I don't really have anything else.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Did you want to?
I could just repeat from my comments at the Planning Commission. I love the condos at the top. I think that's a wonderful transition, and it provides a good buffer to the residential. I've mentioned that before to you, and I'm so happy you listened to me because I think that's a great asset. I, on the other hand, really like the building. A thought process of if we were to get that building, there might be a lot of things we could do with that. We might, I wanted to say, and I mentioned it to you before, we would absolutely have to do an inspection on it. I'm sure it needs a new roof, which if we got it, someone promised that roof already. I'm a hard bargainer, you know that. But if you think about it, I've been thinking about it, it has a kitchen in it. What happens if we could produce a commercial kitchen for cooking classes or something for our residents? Something, you know, they could have weddings there. They could have, you know, I hate to always give away somebody offering us a building. It's Lyon Township's property, very expensive. And if we were offered 7 to 10 acres, in my mind, that is a huge asset for us to obtain. Now, I don't know exactly what we could do, but maybe, you know, there might be a chef that could come in there and create some cooking things. It might be a cool thing to have. Obviously, it takes money, but it's already a pre-existing building with a parking lot. I mean, it's something I would like to think about, or the board would. I was more in favor of it. I still did mention that I thought the density was still a little bit too high. Basically, I concur with everybody else, but those were my comments. Mostly it was about the building, and I really do like the condos separation.
Okay. Lise?
I would agree with. You jumped right past Michelle.
Well, no, I'll start that way.
I would agree with the previous comments. I have concerns about the, I believe it was 160 sewer taps is what the capacity is. Is that right, Leslie?
No, that's what it was designed using, but when you typically design gravity sewers, you end up with more capacity than maybe your design criteria because you pick the next largest size pipe. Okay. So there's extra capacity in the pipe. I just made the point that density shouldn't be given just because gravity sewer has capacity in it.
Okay. So I would have a concern on, part of that discussion, and then I'm always thinking about sidewalks, and I know that to the north is that Wallbridge property, and I had asked if they would be willing to bring their internal sidewalks closer to that border, and I was hoping to see maybe a way that you could connect some kind of sidewalk or pathway.
We've already had that conversation. If Wallbridge is willing, we are.
All right. So that's the only new thing that I have for you. That concludes my comments.
Can I make a comment about that? I get what you're saying, Lisa, but if I were a homeowner, I would not want to be connected to the industrial property. I don't think that's safe for the residential. I don't think I would want people to come to work to be wandering into my neighborhood, and I don't want to be wandering into an industrial place. That's just my one opinion of that. And I don't know how anybody else feels. But somehow, I don't think I'd like that. I wouldn't want my kids going over there. There's big trucks. You don't know even what's going to be coming over there. That's just my thought. I wouldn't want my little kid to, take his bicycle into an industrial area. I think that's like way two different things, but that's just I just wanted to say that. Just my thought.
Okay. Lise, did you have anything else?
No,
okay. Robert?
I'm sorry.
Okay. So I guess, I again agree with everybody else so far that the transitional concept makes sense to kind of slide it down a little bit. The overall density doesn't seem crazily off to me. I'm not sure yet about the building. I think I'd have to think a little more about potential uses, but definitely worth considering. On your southwest corner open space, do you know offhand? Is that is that primarily wetland? Is that buildable for anything? And considering, if we were to want to actually take that as a township park type site.
There is some buildable land. There are wetlands in there as well, but it's not all wetland. In fact, when the last proposal that came in for this site from Lombardo, they had actually designated that as a future elementary school site.
Okay, so it's not just a swamp. We could put a play structure or that sort of thing. Okay. Yeah, because if not, then it's like I don't see the advantage to us taking on its maintenance versus keeping it in the HOA. But something else to consider there. I love the open space. I like how you've preserved the tree line compared to the parallel plan, things like that. The biggest hang-up for me isn't the density, but the traffic impact as you go north to the intersection, which, if I'm reading the traffic study right, goes from level of service E to level of service F. And so that's anything kind of like Chris was saying, maybe you look at if the ring road leg would mitigate that significantly, then maybe some sort of contribution towards that would help. But overall, I think it's a nice looking product with a mix of sizes to choose from to cater to an array of people.
Thank you.
Question, I'm looking at the plan, and my eyes are old, but I'm looking at the plan. So do you have 2 entrances on Milford Road or 3? Because is that okay? So the north does go through, because on the plan it stops.
The existing drive into the clubhouse,
okay,
but that would be extended under.
So you would keep that one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I saw the plan and I saw everybody coming in the second drive, and then the townhomes have to drive through all of the houses to get up there. So my plan looks like it stops. So if we were to get the clubhouse or keep the clubhouse, that would still be the existing route for the townhouses?
We'd have to look at that.
Okay.
So the township might not want it that way, we might not want it that way, depending on what the use would be.
Okay. All right. Yep, that's all I had.
All right, well, I'm not going to take a bunch of time. You've heard a lot of good things here, I believe, that can show you the way. I think if the master plan ends up showing the top strip as basically what you have there, then this whole thing of density is a little bit less hard to swallow. But the overall plan, to me, I love the transition. I think we need that. We have some large lots on the 12-mile side. I'd like you paving the road. I think that's important. The buffers, I think, are wonderful. We need the buffers. The open space is good. Everything looks good. I think we have to get over the density part. And as far as the clubhouse goes, I think that's something that we should really talk about. When is a drop-dead time that you would have to know about that? If this thing started, it's part of your whole project.
Good evening, David Goldberg, Law Office of David A. Goldberg. So to answer that question, timing through the process, our intention is to leave it as is, whether you wanted it, we wanted it, or it just went away. It will still look like that. So our design is to design around it regardless. If it went away, we wouldn't say, oh, well, now we have an opportunity to put something else there. It would just become open space.
Well, I didn't want to hold the project up because of that, but...
Yeah, so the buildings, it was built 35 years ago. It's not super old. It's not in a deteriorating condition. If it sat for a minute while we figured things out, it would be okay.
All right, well, I have nothing else. I don't know if there's anything anyone wants to add to it.
Just one addition. The Planning Commission brought up a question that we weren't able to answer at that meeting. That's regarding the separation distance between the townhome buildings. It is 30 feet as shown on that plan, so that becomes a non-issue, I think.
So the only one then would be the 20 feet between the smaller
single family. The mid-sized lots, we'd still like to have 20 feet instead of 30 between those.
Okay.
And then you said the townhomes are going to be for sale,
Yes.
not for rent.
That's the intent, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the Junior League proposal to add cement walkway to the Atchison Park. I mean, this is, oh, there he is. How you doing?
I'll keep it short and sweet. Keep your guys' time precious here. My name is Chris Bandy. I'm the president of the South Lyon Junior League. Back again looking for some improvements to Atchison Park. I know when these fields were built years ago, we were looking at adding a walkway from the parking lot up to the dugouts for ADA access. We are in position now to have a plan to come forward. I believe it's in your packet for tonight. We are looking at a 218-foot sidewalk from the parking lot to the edge of the dugouts, 8 foot wide, and I believe it's 15 feet wide across the culvert right there at the ditch, a couple feet of the other side of the parking lot. The current cost that we had bidded out was $14,800, and we would also be asking the township to do a 50-50 split on that as well.
Make a motion to approve the request as submitted with a not-to-exceed amount of $7,500. Just split with a little bit of a cushion there. Just split 50-50.
I'll support that.
Can I ask for just one clarification? It's going to be a pet peeve of mine, but it's concrete sidewalk?
Concrete. Yes, concrete.
And that it will be, the intent is for it to be ADA compliant, right?
Correct.
Oh, it says cement.
He prefers to say the word bituminous instead of asphalt, too.
So the wrong verbiage?
Concrete, cement.
The correct verbiage is concrete. Cement's an ingredient within concrete. It's a pet peeve, sorry.
Not a problem.
Did you get a couple bids or just one?
We got 2 bids. This was about $1,000 cheaper. We did not get a third bid. Unfortunately, right now with concrete bids, you're waiting months to get it, and we thought it was...
Seems less than what I expected it to even cost.
We were shocked.
I thought it was 20 grand, yeah.
Okay, well, did we get a second on that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I was still talking and she just got me right off.
Yeah, but I
No, I know, I'm just...
My son played baseball.
I'm teasing you.
It also includes a cement pad for a flagpole that was in your packet too. So,
Go ahead,
Just one minor confirmation there. Again, I can't get the image to pull up on my laptop here, but from what I recall looking at it earlier, it looked like there was a gap between the culvert and the parking lot. Is that just the way it was drawn? So, okay, so the intent is to have continuous...
It'll be straight from the parking lot out. We may have to work with the parking lot and remove one of the parking spaces so you can have direct access to it. Okay. So one of the parking lots, we may just have to look to move that around once we get it in and move it so there will be direct access without having to go around 6 cars.
Okay, good. That was I didn't want to do it and then have a weird gap left.
No, we would get it. We'd come out and straight
There's a reason you're doing it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We want to make it so grandma and grandpa can see their kids play ball.
Yeah,
That's me, don't talk.
My son plays baseball there all the time. He played there tonight. And I can tell you, I see people struggling with kids and with strollers and with, folks who have challenges from a mobility standpoint, and this is going to make it a lot easier for all those fans.
Well, I think this is a good thing, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
Another
you.
good
We're trying to make
improvement
it,
to our
we love
park.
those parks and those fields. We're trying to make it as best we can. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yay.
All right, the next 2 items here both include the chief, so we have an approval to hire a fire marshal.
So before you now is the request. We are looking to put in a fire marshal in place, similar to the process that we had for hiring captains. We would go through an assessment center type of hiring, and right now we've had the assistant chief wearing many hats and trying to fulfill this role, and it's causing a gap in fire safety inspections and just our routine maintenance inspections, not to mention just what he has to do with plan review. Also, along with that, our ISO rating takes a hit without having a fire marshal in place. So It's just, it's been a few months, and we're going to try and, we'd like to try and fill a position this year. The position is budgeted, and I'm looking for approval.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Oh, no. We talked earlier, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of a fire marshal as outlined in the chief's memo.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next up,
Was that Chris Emley? Did you second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
to replace the roofs on Fire Station 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, on the fire marshal. Yeah, so this is just one of those issues we've been kind of kicking down the road for the last few years, that the roofs have been needing replacement, and we've been juggling which one is in need of replacement more, but they're both in bad shape. They're both original from the construction of 2001. So we felt we got a pretty good deal to get both roofs done with the roof company, and that would be my recommendation, is to move forward with their bid of $103,547 that would come from capital improvements.
Do we have cash for that? We do have it? No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do.
Patty's got it in her purse. Sure.
I think this is also one of those things that every budget session, we have this on there, and
Well, we can't let them leak. It might put a fire out.
yeah, we don't.
That's right. I'll move the approval of the replacement of the roofs on Station 1 and 2. Go with the roof company, the proposals that are included in our packet, not to exceed $103,000, or $103,547.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Spending a lot of money.
All right. Now,
Get stuff taken.
is Mr. Green? Okay, he's here. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the Pineview Court Conditional Rezoning, AP 2220. Brian, you want to start it up?
I will. Thank you, John. For consideration this evening is a conditional rezoning proposal on a vacant parcel of land just west of the airport, south of Pontiac Trail. So Pontiac Trail, as you follow the map, is the main road here. The airport is in this portion, and the vacant parcel that we're talking about is being highlighted by your cursor here. This property will be accessed through the vacant property to the west. There's an existing access easement recorded for this property, which would bring a driveway into this vacant lot. There is a private road easement on Pineview Court that theoretically could be used for access to this site, and that was, as I understand it, that was the legal access when this lot was created. However, the applicants, as part of the site plan included in conditional rezoning, do not intend to use that Pineview Court. It would be the access easement to the west. So I want to give you a brief refresher on what conditional rezoning is. Unlike a traditional rezoning, conditional rezoning limits the property's use to specifically what is being proposed and in front of you at this time. In this case, it is limited to up to 18 private storage buildings on the property. It would be configured in a manner similar to the site plan that was proposed. It could not ever exceed that number if you were to grant approval of this. There's a chance that it could be less intense if engineering, say the detention ponds require a redesign. There's a chance that there could be less units on this property once it comes to fruition, if it goes that far. So if the conditions of a rezoning are not met, the property would revert back to its existing zoning, which is R0.3. Similarly, if construction does not begin within 2 years of an approval for conditional rezoning, the property would revert back to R0.3. Any questions on the process at this point before I get into specifics? I guess one other thing that I'd like to mention is there are conditions, well, there's one condition listed in the application for this project, which is that the structures are not to be used as housing or dwellings. By association, the site plan is a condition of the rezoning. So what you're looking at here in terms of setbacks and buffers from adjacent properties would be upheld. But ultimately, should you approve this plan tonight, the project then goes back to the Planning Commission for a formal site plan review where all of the details of the project will be worked out. Landscaping requirements, of the engineering standard reviews, width of roads, dumpster enclosures, photometric plans, all of that level of detail comes to the Planning Commission at a future date. You're really setting the parameters of the use here tonight.
Sorry, just on that, is it fair to assume then that if the use were to go forward as proposed being a condo type thing, that after the site plan review by Planning Commission, we would have a condo approval again at this board, or no?
It's an interesting question. I had not considered the process that would go under. My feeling is, as part of this, knowing that a site condo is the intended means of development, it would not come back to this board for the site condo review. Is that fair to say?
I think that sounds correct.
Yeah. Okay, so the Planning Commission then would be the only additional review after the board meeting. Okay. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 25th on this project. There were many public comments that were submitted. Again, you can go back to those meeting minutes if you want the specifics, but the concerns ranged from lighting to traffic generation to ingress and egress on Pontiac Trail, specifically speeds of traffic along Pontiac Trail and vehicles entering into that speed. There were concerns about drainage, privacy for surrounding property owners, and then the use of the barns beyond personal storage. At that meeting, the Planning Commission, after they received their public comments, recommended denial of the application, specifically stating that finding the 9 criteria for conditional rezonings were not met, particularly relating to incompatibility with surrounding land uses. I want to highlight a couple items from our review relating to those conditional rezoning standards. The first being whether or not this project is being proposed in accordance with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. So the property itself zoned R0.3 for residential uses, some of our highest density single-family residential uses. The properties to the north and to the west are zoned similarly, R03. The airport itself is zoned industrial. And our basic intent and purpose for the residential zoning district is to protect those residential single-family uses as we consider non-residential uses that might be included there. So one of the things that I think is important too, that our master plan right now does not recognize the airport's master plan or the airport's input into land use. And one of the things that we know from previous applications on this property is that the airport is not in favor of residential development, not only on this property but several surrounding the property, citing public safety. These are in takeoff areas and approach areas for aircraft, and so their preference is little to no human density on the sites, and so something like this would support that thought on the property. It can also provide a buffer from the airport to surrounding residential properties. And we don't anticipate that it's going to generate a lot of traffic and noise, especially when you consider how much traffic a residential neighborhood might bring. This is likely to bring less traffic to the area using that driveway than a residential development would. I want to note that physical conditions of the property have not changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted, or even for that matter since the previous master plan was adopted. The thing that has changed is the airport's feedback that we've gotten saying that they are not supportive of those residential uses there, and to remove human occupancy as best we can. One of the concerns raised at the Planning Commission meeting was there was a misconception that approving a conditional rezoning on the subject property would automatically mean that the township was going to rezone that longer parcel. I'll go back to the aerial. That the longer parcel to the west was going to become commercial in use, and that's not the case. What you're considering is that property specifically. And so while there would be a driveway to the storage uses through this property, the zoning would remain consistent. It would remain R0.3 on that property unless somebody were to apply and receive approval from the township board. And quite honestly, as I'm looking at it, that if a proposal were to come for something like that, it's a lot harder to sell because of all of the shared property lines that it has with those residential properties in Roediger Estates. Another standard of our conditionally rezoning from our ordinance is whether or not all of the requirements of the proposed zoning classification can be complied with on the subject parcel. At 10 acres, there is substantial buffer from surrounding properties. All of the required setbacks for the district could be met. You can see at the northern portion, the closest pole barn to the northern property boundary would be 116 feet. They call for a landscape buffer zone, which, again, we don't have landscape details at this point. That would be reviewed at site plan, but there could be a pretty significant buffer between the single-family home that sits just to the north. But there's sufficient area for a trash enclosure. There's sufficient area for all of the setbacks, all of the features that need to be put in place. The one caveat being anything that is required as part of engineering. So if the detention basin needs to be increased in size, changed in shape, we could see some modifications to the design. But in that instance, we'd anticipate that these buffers that are shown on this site plan are the closest that anything would get to the property line. With that, I'm going to skip over the specific site plan comments that we had, unless you have any questions regarding those. But again, they're going to be reviewed by the Planning Commission should this move forward. Any questions for me from the planning perspective?
I have one real quick question.
Yes,
so the runway, the actual runway would be to the back side of that, right?
Yes, if we're looking at the site plan, the runway comes south of the drain. This is the drain that intersects the property here. So the runway starts right about in the area of my cursor off to the southeast.
Well, I guess my one question to you right now, Brian, is how unusual is it to put this type of barns in the middle of a residential area? I mean, I'm asking that question because you're going to have now, when single-family homes are there, there'd be less traffic, but it's known traffic, right? I mean, it gets a neighborhood and you understand who's going in and out. How usual is it to put like a barns like that in the middle of residential homes? I'm just asking. I know there's an airport on the side, but that's been there probably forever.
Quite some time.
And I'm just wondering how unusual is that? I mean, where else do you see barns like this that are sold as a condominium type barn where are in the middle of a neighborhood instead of out on a Grand River type road, or, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Is it usual or is it unusual?
Well, it's a unique land use to start with, right? We've not seen any proposals for something like this, storage barns for sale at all. But typically you would see a commercial storage facility would go in either an industrial district or a commercial district, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So did you have anything else, or are you ready?
I'm all set.
To move on for some questions? Okay. Anybody would like to ask any questions to Brian right now?
I guess I have a question that would maybe have to do with maybe the site plan, but I mean, what would the, like, if you're working in your own garage and you've got insulation and it's going to have sound dampening, I mean, what would the insulation be for that if you have somebody bringing in a car to work on, or you've got compression tools being used? I mean, it's not going to have the same insulation as a residential garage, would it, or not? Or we don't know?
We don't have that level of detail, I would say, at this point. Any use that goes here, whether it's residential or something like this, would still have to comply with our noise ordinances. You know, measurement of sound at the lot lines surrounding it, if it came to a nuisance request.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know we waited for Mr. Green. Did you have anything you want to come up and talk about, or are you just here to listen?
I have something.
Oh, one second. We're going to let everybody talk. Don't worry.
Leslie, did you have anything?
Well, mine is pretty minor. I do have a letter in the packet, but I just want to point out that my comments are really more site plan related, and they would be really addressed during the site plan approval process. However, you hear me talk about this on every project, the new stormwater standards are not reflected, and it could definitely impact the layout. For example, the spacing between buildings could certainly change, so that's just something to be aware of if this moves forward.
Okay.
Thank you all. Alan Green, my address is 39.
Alan, would you grab the microphone?
This microphone. Okay. Alan Green again. Need my address. 39577 Woodward Avenue, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm only going to say a few words, and Megan will actually, they're the proponent, so they know the development better than I do. I will say just a couple things. Number one, on the development itself, this is new to me. I mean, I've done, I think, any kind of land use before, and I never heard of this. And I did a little bit of internet research, and it is actually, everything I've seen about it is very positive. It's, people want places to store their toys, I guess, is the way I would characterize it. Like, and everything has been, it's very unique. And the other things I've read about it is they increase in value as well. I mean, it's not an unusual thing, but I don't know of any that are right around here that I've been able to identify. So I can't give you an example. But I will say one thing. I just tried to give you a little bit of history here. This is a really unusual piece of property, and it's been very difficult to figure out what to do with it. There's been various development attempts and opportunities to try to develop residential for many years. The airport's been adamant. The county comes in and says, no, we really don't want you to develop this for residential use. It's dangerous. And they've come up with all sorts of a laundry list of items that would probably scare anybody away if you even tried to build residential there at this stage. Initially, when the airport came up with their plan, they were proposing some improvements that would be really industrial-like improvements by this. The one thing the airport said at one point in time, I think it was at some other meeting in front of the Planning Commission years ago, is the best kind of use you can have here is a business use that is non-intensive in terms of occupancy. And it was even mentioned a storage facility would be that kind of use at that meeting. And at that time, it was just traditional storage rental facilities. So when this opportunity came in, to develop the property for this use, and Megan can talk more about it, it just seemed like, wow, it's ideal in that regard. So we wanted to do it as a conditional rezoning. That is, it's the only use that could be made of the property, and if it doesn't go forward, then as you heard, it would revert back to the original zoning. But at the moment, the property is zoned for a use that we can't really do anything with it. I mean, it's not really marketable for that purpose. The airport has come in on various occasions and said, if you do this, if you develop it for residential, you're going to have to put warnings out here, to the people. You're going to have to do all these special things. No one's going to buy a house there in that location. We're fairly well screened, as you saw. We're not really right up on top of any residential homes. We've got a couple homes that are within a reasonable distance, but we can screen it. But we've got the airport on one side. We've got vacant property on the other side that had been part of this property at one point. Originally, there was an overall larger residential development that included both parcels. And when the county bought the airport property, all that changed, because the county had all these grand plans to expand this airport, and you guys know about all that. And then there was a time where everybody waited for the county and the township to try to coordinate your master plans. And that didn't happen. You kept it as residential, and there's not much more to say about that. There are very few uses we could come up with or thought about that would sort of be the transitional, lower intensity use that would be a business use that would be compatible with the residential neighborhood, and then also be compatible with the desires of the airport. And I don't know if anybody's from the airport is here today. This is the first time that a proposal was made in the last 20 years on this property where the airport representatives have not come in and objected, both in writing and orally in that regard. So hopefully we're compatible with that. But if you have any questions about that or the process, the process would be conditional on us working with you and your council on a conditional rezoning agreement, because typically that's what we do in a conditional rezoning. So it'd be like a development agreement. We'd have to negotiate the specifics. The concept plan would be attached. Then we have to go through full site planning engineering, as Brian said, and what we put in there is the maximum right now. So final site planning engineering may result in changes being made, reductions in these units. But they're sort of like pole barns that people have on their homes sometimes, big pole barns if you have a lot of property. And we put, one last thing, I'm probably rambling and I apologize, it's late, you guys have been going at this for a while. We've put restrictions, other restrictions on the use. I mean, you can't operate a business out of these. You can't reside in these pole barns. There was a concern, I think, about doing other things like growing marijuana or anything like that. We put all these restrictions on there, so it's strictly, people use it. They call them hobby barns, I read about too. Bless you. You have artists sometimes bring their things and use it. You have people with an old car, a classic car, that like to store it there rather than at their house, and they can work on it. It's that kind of activity, is my understanding. As well as just basic storage, I mean, equipment, things like that. Boats, some people put a boat there. That's what they're used for. So that's all I have to say, really. Thank you.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
you sent me an email later today just outlining those conditions again, and I forwarded it on. I'm not sure that people received it, so if you could maybe run through what you put in that email. Did you bring it with you?
I did.
Okay.
So the thing about conditional rezoning, which is unusual, it's a very short statute in Michigan, and it was put in place not too long ago, really, and it was done to really help both property owners and municipalities, through the rezoning process, and it was done for a benefit. So you could limit it anyway in a conditional rezoning, but the idea of a conditional rezoning is that the property owner could make proposed conditions but the township can't propose conditions, so it makes it a little bit unwieldy. I could tell you in practice, once you get into the development agreement with the basic conditions, you sort of work it out. I mean, that sort of thing. So the conditions, we have to put the conditions in writing. That's why I'm giving you that preface. It's a very odd statute. It's like you can't come back to me and say, but, can you do X, Y, Z? You really can, but that's not the way the statute says. So the conditions that we put in writing are, number one, notwithstanding the zoning of the property to B3, because that's the classification we need to do this, the only non-residential use of the property will be for the construction of no more than 18 private storage buildings as depicted on the concept plan that we presented to the Planning Commission and to the Township Board. Number two, the storage units cannot be used for residential use. No one will be permitted to live in the units. Number three, storage units can be used for business to store material and equipment, and businesses can rent or buy them. I guess buy them, really, because it's a condominium. The business cannot operate out of the storage unit with customers coming and going, so there's no traffic from anybody saying that I'll start my business and I'll start it out of this little shed because I'm going to sell antiques or something like that. You can't do that. The storage units cannot be used to grow or sell marijuana products. That's 4. 5. The project will be developed as a condominium project, and we will prepare a master deed and bylaws, which will include the maintenance and operations of the common areas and open space, and that will be reviewed by the township and Township's council, drafts of that. 6, the storage units will be the same or substantially similar in quality and materials to the concept buildings presented in the rezoning proceedings. That is, it's no bait and switch. We can't show you that the buildings will have these kind of materials and then come back later in site planning and show you something different or less. And 7, the rezoning will be tied to the final site. Should say site plan, but I have a typo in there. So I'll say it now. Final site plan once reviewed and approved through the normal township procedures. Again, this is not a way to get around the detailed site plan and engineering procedures that we'll have to follow and we'll have to meet all those. And that will be a condition of this as well. So those were the conditions that we proposed. Okay. Any other questions of me at this point? And I appreciate it. I know I will say this too. It's an unusual and difficult ask of the Township Board to potentially not go along with the decision of the Planning Commission. But I don't know. At this point in time, we're really excited about the use. I will say that because it was exactly what the airport threw out there a long time ago, but better, I think, with this ownership issue, condominiums. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to come up?
Megan Farkas, 595 Brighton Lake Road. I'm here on behalf of my father and the buyer of Pine View Court. Alan kind of went over a lot of the things I was going to say, but just a little bit about the barns. Well, my family actually has been in Lyon Township for 25 plus years. Our office headquarters is here. We've built a few industrial buildings, own a few in Lyon Township, so we're really familiar with Lyon Township and would like to do another development here. So these barns, like we said, there's going to be 1,800 square feet buildings. They're going to be very low maintenance material with metal siding and the fake stone on the front. As far as cost, that will depend on the market once we start construction, but we anticipate to sell them for $150,000 to $200,000. It's a fairly new concept, but it's become very popular. With a lot of the residential homes in the area, the lots aren't big enough to have secondary garages, so this allows someone a place to store their boats, their RVs, things like that, rather than keep them on their property or have to go to a storage facility to do so. Like we said, some examples are personal storage materials, equipment, classic cars, boats, snowmobiles, RVs, especially in Michigan, having all the different seasons and toys for each season. People need a place to store them. It's a really low density transition from residential and the airport with little traffic. Mr. Green already went over all the conditions that we're proposing. And then obviously in our final site plan, we'll go over engineering and make sure we meet all the requirements. But in your packet, I know the engineering letter talked about the egress and ingress, and that was in your packet as well as a wetland study. And then here with me tonight is the owner, or the potential buyer, Dan Aller, our counsel, Alan Green, and our architect, Scott Bowers, if you guys have any further questions for any of us.
Okay. Well, I'd like to open it up for conversation here on the board before we bring up the public. So, anyone have any questions or concerns?
I do.
Okay.
I was just going to ask, I don't know if I addressed it to Mr. Green or to you. You're saying no businesses, no residing, no marijuana use, but who polices this? Once they purchase, are they able to just, oh, well, now marijuana's in and it's legal and good luck getting me out? I mean, how does this work? If they're are they gonna sign a lease or an agreement with you, and is that something that you could just throw them out? Is that, I mean, I'm not sure how that would work.
We'll be creating a condominium master deed bylaws. So there's common areas, there's the open space, there's wetlands, there's the road. And all those will be maintained by the developer owner situation. They'll pay a fee. They pay a maintenance fee, just like you were in a regular condominium. So, you know, it'll cover the plowing of the drive. It'll cover the maintenance. It'll cover. There will be rules and regulations and bylaws. They'll have to sign an agreement that'll cover all that, and those will be things that everything you just said are really important. And there'll be things that we'll cover in the documents that we'll work on with the township. So it'd be like any other condominium project: bylaws, master deed, purchase agreement, disclosures, and then an entity that's involved and responsible for managing it. Just like you have a commercial condominium project where you have different sites, like in a shopping center type developer, you have a management company where the owners take care of all that. So, yeah, it's really going to be important that it's regulated properly for even the other owners, because I was actually, for the first time, I heard how much they might sell for. Now I've heard that they're all over $100,000. So people are making an investment in this, and they want it to be well maintained. They want it to be marketable so they could turn around and sell it if they move out of the area and they want to sell it to somebody else. So, good questions.
Can I ask a couple?
Sure,
Michelle?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I, Michelle, real quickly, I don't know that they answered your questions, but they would be able to enforce it through their condo association, but we could also enforce it through our conditional rezoning agreement if they violate that.
Okay.
Right. Typically, I'll add this. Typically, I would expect that in your condo documents, anywhere you have here, when you review it, in addition to the enforcement requirements of the condominium association, there's usually provisions that allow the township to step in at any time and enforce those documents, you know, and then charge it back. But hopefully, that never really has to happen.
I think my concern. Well, go ahead, Patty. Go ahead.
I can wait if you want me to.
When you're talking hot rods and you're talking toys and you're talking boats and things like that, you know, that could get out of hand as far as noise in the neighborhood. I mean, it just could. And I don't know how you'd police that. But go ahead, Patty. I'm just
Well, I
saying.
wanted to know, are these going to be, are they going to include water, sewer, and electricity? What is going to be permitted inside of them? Because once you allow, I can understand the electricity, because obviously you need to light it. I'm a little concerned if you start adding water and or plumbing, because then that means you're going to have a bathroom. Does that mean somebody could start living in it, even though it says you're not? That was another question. And then what about like a dumpster in there? Is that, how do you get rid of your garbage? I mean, it is around residential, and you know, dumpsters are very noisy.
It'd be like, I mean, you could have an apartment complex with dumpsters like that. I don't know that there's going to be that much trash I will ask Megan on this question. If I were guessing, clearly electricity, but if I were guessing, I would suspect that there would be plumbing for a toilet or bath in each unit or something like that. But is that correct, or am I wrong? I could be totally wrong.
Hi, I'm Dan Aller, 10618 Lighthouse Point, South Lyon. So that's where I live, and then our business is over on William K. Smith, and so we own some buildings over there. Over on Lakeview, we own some buildings. This is it's kind of a new concept. We're doing it out in Green Oak Township, right on 23 and Whitmore Lake Road. Is that the road? We call them barndominiums. We're getting ready to break ground there, probably 30 to 60 days. South Haven, they can't build them fast enough. I know they're doing some out in Highland Township. We're not doing those over there, but not here to trick anybody. I'm here to help. If you can't build residential, and if you can't build a residential there, and you don't want to have industrial buildings or retail, I'm trying to find a happy medium. And I just thought the pole barns, we call them barndominiums. So it could be a guy, someone with a motor home, 40-foot motor home, pulls it in, boats. We did a subdivision in Milford Township, a residential subdivision that we had provisions. The lots were big enough for secondary garages. They just had to conform with what the houses look like, but not a lot of subdivisions have that. So, we just thought it was a good idea. How do you enforce it? To me, we're doing something in Brighton. We work with the council to come up with the bylaws. So we're willing to do that. So I'm kind of open to figure out something that would work there. Plumbing?
No, I'm asking because that was the question, whether you have plumbing.
So here's, I talked about it with Megan today. Let's say it's a plumbing, and again, if you don't like the idea, tell me. I started in with one guy in our house, and I had I was fortunate to work out of my dad's shop. He had 1,000 square foot back in the bay. So me and the truck driver just went there in the morning, got our materials, and that's, I'm not saying I don't want the customers coming in there. That's what it's not there for. But let's say the plumbing contractor or electrical contractor, he's operating out of his house, and he has a mini excavator, and he has his pipe and stuff in there. If you look, there's not a ton of parking, so it's not like you can have 10, 20 people there. There's only a couple parking spots. So if it was a business, that was, in my head, that's kind of what I was looking at is it a guy operating on his house and he has to put the mini excavator in there? Again, if you don't like it, just tell me. I'm open for suggestions. Is it a person that has, their ski boat or a motor home or their snowmobiles? And then on the sewer and water issue, I could be wrong, but way back in the day, when we were developing the buildings, I know the sewer taps were very expensive.
They still are.
Still are, right?
Yes.
We have one coming up we're paying for on a new building.
Mm-hmm.
And back then it was because, the infrastructure went in, but you got to pay for it. So in my head, why wouldn't you, if that again, I was trying to put the water and the sewer in there to try to recoup some of those costs. Some of the, some people call them man caves or whatever you want to call them. You'd think you'd want water in there to wash things. And you think you'd want a bathroom or something in there, but I don't think you're trying to build a house with 10 bathrooms in there. Again, we can put all that in the bylaws and work with the township to figure out what you want. I'm just trying to figure out what the happy medium, what's low intensity. And I don't know how that's pretty low intensity. I don't know how, it's not industrial building, it's not retail. The mini storage, I know, I don't know, I don't know if that would fly around. I didn't bring that up, I just thought these would be a whole lot better looking than mini storage, but So I'll just step aside. If you got any more questions, let me know.
Okay.
But I'm not, you know, I don't want to argue. I'm just here. If we can't come up with something, that, you know, I get it, but I'm just here to try to make something happen if we can. And I'm on your side. I'm not here to argue.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? You have any more?
No, those were my questions, right?
Anybody? Go ahead.
I do, but I don't know if we want to.
Well, let's go ahead and ask him all the questions, so then we can bring the public up after we figure out where everything's going, and then let them talk.
Okay.
Just let him go one more time, and then I'll bring you up. Go ahead.
Okay. So I guess I tried to pull up the airport master plan, and it looks like the most recent one I could find still indicated a potential intent to expand into that. So I'm wondering if we move forward with this, how would that affect, you know, is there the ability with the conditional rezoning on this parcel to, you know, split it at the drain and allow the airport to still eventually acquire the southern piece? Or is that prevented by something in?
We can't make a decision on this property based on what the airport says they might want to do in the future. Okay?
I guess I'm just trying to see if we're tying our hands.
Well, we're not tying our hands because they're making a proposal that you either agree to or not. But the airport hasn't come in so far and picked it up.
Right.
Even though they previously said they wanted to, they decided not to. So we can't base our decision on possibly the airport might want it someday. Or we can't split it saying we'll save this for the airport.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of anything recently. When the current owner originally bought the property, the airport had a new master plan that involved putting some parking on that end and some industrial, like warehouse buildings on the airport property. And so it was really bought as an intent to be a service because there was going to be an expansion of the airport. So it was going to expand privately, service operations. Right at that point in time, the airport started a process saying, well, we might want to buy it or some of it. And then, so everything was put on hold. They took several years. They did an appraisal to purchase it, and then the recession came 2008-9, and then they just dropped any interest in it, and they really haven't had any interest since then. I don't think they have any plans to expand at the moment, but
I guess I would point out one other thing that you need to be aware of that I don't think people realize. If the airport is to purchase that property, the airport would be exempt from our zoning ordinance. So they would be able to use that property however they wanted as long as it was related to airport functions. So if they want to go in and put huge industrial buildings there that were serving as hangars or whatever, we wouldn't have any say about it. So.
John, I'm not terribly familiar with this. I mean, I know of this use, but I guess we don't have any in the township. I know a couple of people who have these in other parts of the state, and one of the people that I know has his stuff in it, as well as 2 or 3 other people, so there's a lot of coming and going. And the other one has it more outfitted to be kind of a hangout for him and his friends. And so I guess, I don't know, there's 18 of these units. I don't know how that would be divided up. You couldn't control how each of those 18 units, some may run a business out of it quietly. I mean, we've got issues with people running home occupations that are illegal and fighting those fights. This is,
right.
Similarly, this would be, as challenging, probably much more challenging. There aren't a lot of eyes like there are in a neighborhood to kind of police what's going on here. But, some may be quiet, some may be really busy. I mean, Super Bowl parties and all kinds of other, if you're spending $150,000 or $200,000, and I think it's a cool concept. I think this is a cool use.
Right.
I just don't think this is a great spot for it because of the close proximity to other neighbors that, I know the airport's right there, but otherwise they're not living next to that kind of constant use. It's a pretty quiet airport too.
Yeah.
Comparatively, there's not a whole lot of air traffic, but My fear is just the kind of unknown with this and what kind of other impacts that aren't really being contemplated tonight it may bring. I can't, if you buy one and I buy one and I go there once a month and you're there every single day because you've got a collection of Corvettes that you just like to polish every day and all of your buddies come over and you put the Van Halen on and it's just, So, I mean, in all seriousness, though, there's going to be a variety of uses going on, and if you're going to spend this kind of money, I guess what I was going to say, you're not going to build something that's a nice kind of outbuilding that has, a bathroom in it and then not ever go there. It's sort of, I don't know how to say it other than an attractive nuisance, but that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that it's going to be a magnet for people who are going to want to use this as a social gathering place and not just sort of like, I'm going to lock this stuff away and never go there. They're going to buy this because they can have a bathroom, because they can have it as a, kind of a hangout and have Super Bowl party. I mean, that's going to be one of the draws to this. So I feel like my fear is that that's the direction it would go.
I get that. I get that. And I think that that's something to be explored and controlled because, like, for example, there's no parking for that here, and that could be prohibited. These are not, I thought one of the most brilliant things, I wish I always think about these things because then I wouldn't have to be a lawyer and do this, but the people that started those garages on that, the former GM land in Pontiac, where they built a racetrack and now you've got a place to store your cars, and it's a social thing. It's exactly what you're talking about. Guys like to go there, and hang out, and it's made for that, and it's allowed, and they've got space for that, and they got parking, and you can race your car down around the track. So these are not that. These are storage units, and that's really what they're storage units that you buy, and maybe. My only suggestion at this, I mean, the neighbors will speak, and I'm sure, like at the Planning Commission, they're going to object to anything like this, or anything other than residential. But my only suggestion might be, unless you're so adamantly against it, you just say no, is that we've waited a long time to try to figure out what to do with this property. This is a really interesting concept. I mean, I did maybe what you'd want to do. Is I just started doing some internet research. I'd really like to see a project like this. I know they're in California. I know I've seen these things. Maybe if you have any interest in understanding this on both sides, that you can decide to listen to everything and table it, and then we can do some further research and investigation. These are storage units, though. That's the whole intent of them. It's not for activities. It's not for. We can ban those type of gatherings. It's going to be managed. There's going to be a manager, a management company. It's a condominium, so everything has to be maintained. The landscaping, the buffers. There's a fair amount of open space here too, because we got wetland areas and buffer areas in this. So I understand your concerns, but what you're expressing is not the intent of this. So the question is, how are they operated in the other facilities that exist? Where can we go look at one, and see what they do? That's all I can.
So I do have one question, Brian. How long has this been zoned R03?
As far as I can go back.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as you can go back. Okay. How long has the airport been there?
I don't have that.
Okay.
1946, John.
Okay. What I'm getting at is we get, as a township board, and this is the bad side of this decision making, okay? We as a township board get hit with both sides of that every single time. Like we'll say, okay, well, the future land use map says it was zoned light industrial. Okay, well, you're putting a light industrial building in the middle of a bunch of residential houses. Well, that doesn't matter. I would have lost money because I bought it on that situation. When does it ever come to the responsibility of the person who buys the property? He looks at it as R03, he goes down into the future land use and it's R03, and now he comes to this board to get him out of something that he did because, why did he buy it?
Well, here's, again, history was that the prior landowner had gone with a site plan of 30-something units on the overall property. It got a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. The very day that the Planning Commission recommended approval, a representative of the airport for the first time, county, I shouldn't say the airport, like Oakland County came in and said, oh, by the way, we're under contract to buy the airport property. It was a private airport before. And then as a result of that, they did buy it. They adopted a master plan right away. It killed the residential project. If you looked at their master plan that they adopted back then, it showed right, like all this area right adjacent to this property, it showed these warehouse structures. It showed a parking lot. They were going to build a new parking lot, and they were going to improve the runway. This is going to be, their plan was this is going to be a, they're going to improve it and use this with much greater frequency. That changed everything. And that's really what happened at that point in time, is that the county bought the airport. And all of a sudden, the people that, the prior developer, you could see, we got a neighbor who we have the right to drive over, and that's an easement property. It was all part of the same property. So when the airport came in and bought the airport property, the owner ended up, killed his project, but he split the property and took this part of the property that seemed to be right up against the airport and more consistent with and concerned with the airport runway and proximity, and then that property was divided and sold. So it was sold to us, someone else bought the other property, and Dave sent a letter to the Planning Commission objecting to this. That property has also not been developed for anything in the time that the airport bought the property. So it was a changed condition. I understand what you're saying, but every single time we've come in, and we were back here in 2017, and the airport came in again. We pulled it from the agenda. You might have recalled that.
I do remember that.
Right, and again, the airport came in, both in writing, in a letter or email, and appeared at the Planning Commission meeting, and they were very specific about it. It is not suitable for residential. It's a danger. Here are all the things that could go wrong. So what are you supposed to do at that point in time? So we pulled it because we didn't have any other use for it at that point in time. Our whole objective was, can we ever find a use that meets the airport's objective of being low occupancy? That is, they don't want a lot of people, there at any one period of time, certainly people living in there, and that also serves as a low-intensity transitional use from the other residential properties. It's a unique situation. No question about it. It's a difficult situation. So that's all I want.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. But I would like to go ahead and bring the public up because they've been patiently sitting.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm very apologetic for being put in the back. Oh, please go ahead. One more, hang on.
So I'm sorry. You're saying this is how large? 1,800 square feet? Okay. I'll put it out there. That's literally bigger than my home. It's more expensive than what I paid for my home. And if you say that this is just a storage unit, it is not just a storage unit. And if you have water and you have a bathroom in there, it's going to be the honeycomb hideout that Sean, well, I just dated myself, but that if you think that somebody's not going to spend an entire day there at a Super Bowl party, you are fooling yourself. And if you keep on bringing up the parking, you're not even talking about the drive getting into that property, which is anywhere between 500 to 800 feet, where you're going to have cars lined up on Super Bowl Sunday going to hang out in some unit that's bigger than my house.
I don't know how they can park there if there's bylaws. Okay. I mean, it doesn't.
Okay, hey, everybody, could you please just hold it? We'll give you your time, I promise.
You can put two cars in the front. I mean, isn't that where the police come in when the property management calls in to enforce the bylaws? I mean, a lot of people live in condominium associations. I mean, what do?
I'm talking about
they send a letter.
Okay.
I live in a subdivision that's, I mean, and I'm being serious, if I call the police and say there's a violation or an infraction of the bylaws or master deed, they're going to tell me they can't do anything about it. They're going to say call the township and make a complaint.
Okay, and I when you say who's in the police, I'm going to buy one. I'm right down the street. I can tell you, I'm not going to let them park on the roads. I have 5 kids. I told everyone to buy one. So I mean, when I say I think there's going to be some policing. I don't think it's what you're thinking. It's going to be Super Bowl parties. I don't think that's not going to happen. But we can work with the council and put it in the bylaws. I mean, I don't have a problem doing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it goes back to I'm in favor of putting residential there. Are you? I mean, again, it's back to the question. We'll do that.
Well, we haven't. That's not here. So let's.
I know
that's
that.
Another. That's a whole
I'm
other
just.
thing.
I
get it. Hey, believe me, this isn't personal on anybody.
Yeah.
I hope you all understand that.
I'm just
We get put in positions, just like I said, to make decisions that we shouldn't have to make. But that's why we're here, and we have to make these decisions. So let's go ahead, okay? And believe me, it's nothing personal.
No,
Don't take it.
I know. I'm just trying to.
We enjoy you here in the township, and we always will.
And all those projects we do, I don't think you have any.
No.
Place.
But we have a lot of residents, and we owe them as much as we owe everybody else. So let's go ahead and bring up the residents, and go ahead. You want to come on up? I'm not really sure yet. Thanks again for your patience.
My name is Jeanette Pfeiffer. My address is 59101.
Can you use the microphone in front of you?
My address is 59101 Albert Lane, Horse New Hudson. I've been in this township for 26 years. I've traveled up and down Pontiac Trail for those 26 years. Coming from Grand River up Pontiac Trail, you've got a bend in the road. You've got a speed limit there of 45 miles an hour. You've got, all of a sudden, getting to the top of the hill, it says pass with care. That's where they want to put these storage units. You are going to have accidents galore up there. And then with what's going on at Irwin's, you're not going to be able to move. So that's my concern. You're going to have a lot of accidents in there. And I hope you don't make a mistake like you did with Continental Aluminum, which they're showing all these pretty pictures of 1998. You let a foundry, excuse me, my throat's getting dry. You let a foundry in there. Now they're showing all the pretty pictures that you're going to put around this foundry. What's going on with that?
Okay, well, that's a different subject, so we have to that's kind of a different subject, so we'll have to stay
I know.
point here.
I don't want to do that, but...
Okay, no, we appreciate that.
But anyways, that's my concern. You're going to have a lot of accidents.
Traffic accidents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
How you doing?
My name is Kathleen Hansen, Hansen, 29360 Roediger Court, New Hudson, Michigan. I'm not sure when the airport came in, but I know it was there when we arrived, 1985. We like the airport. That's fine. At that time, that piece of property, can you go back to the previous screen, please? Thank you so much. So the long strip was a horse farm. Before that, it was Roediger Farms. Then it was a horse farm owned by Peggy Moya. Her brother owned the piece of property we're looking at that's in question. She bought that from him, so it was one piece of agricultural property before it was zoned to R3. After she moved out, a big development company came in, bought the property, and whoops, it doesn't perk. There's a wetland on there and a high-pressure line going there. That was the first of 4 people who have purchased the property without doing research. And then we turned to say, this is a great idea. My brother has one. I talked to him at length about it. But it's light industrial. It's not residential. So he wants to develop that 10 acres, which is, he bought the property, but why would you buy property that's landlocked? I don't know. So the road, which has never been in this discussion, will come right back behind my house, okay? And yes, like I said, fourth person to buy the land, you can't do anything on it. There's a sentiment out there that every single piece of property in Lyon Township has to be developed. Maybe not. Anyway, so I'm objecting on several reasons. It just doesn't belong there. Great idea. Yes, Lyon Township could use one of these facilities. I'm absolutely sure about it. Just not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on.
Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
And madams. My name is William Hanson. I live at 29360 Rodecker Court. My wife just came up and talked. I want to say one important thing. There's an airport there. The T-shirt that I am wearing is a B-17. I flew on that particular plane 20 years ago. That particular plane crashed 3 years ago. I'm lucky I wasn't on it, but I've been on a B-17, a 25, and a 29 since. All the airports that you fly in and out of have to have space around them for planes that come in and unfortunately crash. We had one, 2 years ago, up past Grand River, that hit a house. Could have killed people, but they weren't there, thank goodness. I live right behind this airport. I did not buy a piece of property that was in line with the strip, but I did like one of those, but I went over to the side and bought 38 years ago, and I've lived there ever since. I've had planes come over my house by about 50 feet. They're not supposed to, but things do happen. If you look right, that's the end of the strip. That's where this property is. That is where my house is. Right there. Now, they come in, they're supposed to come in on Pontiac Trail, come down Martindale, and come in like this to the strip. I've flown in and out of this airport number of times. I wanted to be a pilot, but I can't see that good. And I'm too old. But when you come in, your eyes are supposed to be on that strip. Any buildings, both north and south, and even back here, where I live, are too close to this runway. You put any kind of building in this area, and unfortunately, it's been that way for years, and that's why it's been turned down, and that's why the airport doesn't want anything put in here. Planes crash. We had one come in on Grand River right about in here somewhere, came in like this, into a home, one of these homes, and I can't remember which one. That was about 10 years ago.
Okay, well, we do have to stay on point here.
Okay, I'm just saying.
No, and I
That's
appreciate
the
everything.
main problem with this area. Okay? You bring planes in here, they can come into anything that's built in this area.
Yep, no, we understand that, and we do appreciate you telling us and letting us know that.
I live near an airport. I know what can happen.
Okay.
And if it's approved,
Okay, well, thank you for that.
in the future, things can happen.
I appreciate that.
Can I go?
Yes.
My name is Jerry Elbright. I live at 59071 Anna Drive, New Hudson. So I live at the dead end to the, what would be the west of the property that we're talking about. There, the second house from the end of the property there. My very first question is, I was here for the Planning Commission meeting a couple weeks back, and they said unanimously to a given member, they did not recommend this. So what does that mean to, I want to know procedurally, I guess, what does that mean to you?
Well, the Planning Commission is a recommending board, so they recommend, but it's...
The ultimate decision is that of the township board.
I hear you. Okay, so basically that means nothing to you. Am I paraphrasing?
No, that's not true.
That's not a fair statement, that's argumentative, okay? The fact is, the planning commission can have their opinion and make a recommendation.
Right.
The township board, in a lot of ways, has additional information not available to the planning commission, and probably has, because of that, a better understanding of what they legally can or can't do under certain circumstances, okay? So the township board is not a rubber stamp for the planning commission.
I didn't imply that. No.
Yeah, you did, but...
No, what I'm saying is you guys are not, in my opinion, you guys aren't even considering what they had to say. I know you gave some representation of the comments they made, but I don't think you did it justice. Now, they should, in my opinion, they should have had a member from that board or commission here.
They do. They do. They do me.
You were there.
No, I was not there. I was sick.
Okay.
But I would have been there.
But she's typically there every meeting.
Yes.
Okay, and my point being is that if they were unanimous, on top of the fact that they did not recommend, they turned it down, the residents that were here, except for this group of people here, was unanimously, everybody who came to this mind said one thing. No. So you've got the planning commission, which you don't have to listen to, I hear you. But the residents, to an individual, said no. So I don't understand how the commission, or how this body, can go against that. And particularly, they said it doesn't fit with...
Well, you don't know that yet. We're still trying to figure this whole thing out. So you're kind of making an assumption that we're all going to vote against the planning commission. You don't know that yet.
Okay, I hear you, I understand that. Where was I going with that? But I did want to make that point that it was unanimous that the planning commission did say that, and every resident that stood up that day. I know none of you were here for that meeting, right?
We can't be.
We have their minutes, though.
I'm not saying that you should be.
Well, they're not allowed to. That's why we have a liaison, and I'm
Right.
their liaison for the planning
Normally, I
commission.
guess, because you weren't there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that didn't work. But like I said, every resident that came up here, and you were there, and you can attest to this also, that every one of them said what was negative of this. It doesn't fit in our community. And the comment that we call these things barndominiums, nobody in this room probably has ever heard that term before this situation. So to say that these have been put up in, in another community is fine. But they've not ever been in our Lyon Township, probably, potentially even in larger diameter. And particularly in that area, it doesn't fit with the surrounding community. And on top of that, the idea of a conditional rezoning, this is going to get procedural, I believe, but I'll see if I can wade through it into a little bit, is conditional from their perspective means they present you a list of conditions that they have. It's a very short list, and you guys are supposed to approve that and say anything else beyond that is go, okay. They have stated that it's a one-way negotiation. What they present to you is the list of conditions. You don't have the ability to even countermand that. And if you guys sign up for that,
Sir, that's the state statute, okay? That's the way it works under the state statute. There's nothing that they're doing here. They're simply following the state statute, which provides that you can offer, that landowner can offer a conditional rezoning with conditions, okay? They make the offer.
Yeah.
The board then decides whether or not they want to accept that offer. There's nothing
that's, no, I'm not
evil about
complaining.
it,
I'm not-
okay? That's
I'm-
just the law.
If it's a bad law, that's what I'm complaining about. It can-
Well, but
it can be-
it's the law.
It doesn't make sense, right? That you guys, this board that represents me and every house on that map there, right? We vote you guys into office, and you represent me. And I want you to consider what conditional rezoning is. If on the state books is that you guys are hogtight, so to speak, or can't make any deals, per se, and he's going to come to you with proposals, a couple of proposals that he stated already, which don't address any of the real issues. You know, the water use, if there's going to be a bathroom in there, septic fields, all that kind of stuff, access to the roads, setbacks, all that stuff. None of that stuff has been answered. But I don't see that as your guys' responsibility. That's certainly would have been theirs as they presented to you. So I guess what I want to say primarily is, as a board, as representation of the residents in this room, and haven't been able to come to this meeting at 11 o'clock at night, everybody I've ever talked to said no to this. And that's what I'd like to end, I guess. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Linder.
How you doing?
58695 Pontiac Trail. My property backs directly up to this. This is my house right here. And one of the reasons I bought this house is because of what's on the back wall right behind you. Peggy lived next door here when I bought this house, and she had the farm with all the horses here, and she had the Olympic jumping horses and gates back here where she trained the horses. That's why we bought this, because we could sit out on our deck, look back here, see the farm and the horses. I don't want to sit out on my deck and look back here and see 18 garages that are going to have toys in them that you know these guys are going to be working on them all the time. There's going to be air compressors out there. My next door neighbor accidentally left his on one time when he was over there. I had to listen to it for a week every night. And in the summertime when the windows open, that's all you can hear is that air compressor running. And I can see 18 workshops right here. Because you're saying that these are all for people to store toys in. I can guarantee you they're all going to be in there working on their toys all the time. And you're going to have air tools running. You're going to hear probably welders going and everything else back here working on ATVs. And then when they get them tuned up, they like to goose the engines and sit there and race up and down the little street that's going to be out there to see how well they tuned up their vehicles. I can see 18 shops back there, not storage units. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think the microphone's on.
How you doing?
I'm Jim Stockman, 29200.
I can turn that back on.
Battery dead? Oh, okay.
Rodinger Court. The access to this property is zoned residential. The owner states that they're going to be bringing excavators, plumbing supplies, you know, could be stuff from the airport, down residential roads. It won't be built for it. A lot of extra noise. You know, he said he might have bathrooms. How big of a septic field we need for 18 commercial bathrooms? It's not going to be for 1 or 2 people. It's going to be for the contractors' helpers, you know, their clients, you know. I heard in the planning committee that they were talking about 20-foot roads. How are you going to back a 24-foot trailer into a storage unit with a 20-foot road? You ain't going to do it. There ain't no way you can get 18 units in there if you're just putting campers, motorhomes, boats. They won't fit. You know, you got your wetlands. You don't know what they're doing back there. It could be a storage unit for oil and chemicals. Yeah, they only go back a couple times a week. I worked for a chemical company, and they were stabbing drums every day. Is there going to be oil water separators back there? What kind of sewer system is in there? We're just gonna dump it in the New Hudson drain? You know, might have somebody back there changing oil. They're gonna dump that in the New Hudson drain. There's a lot of stuff that you gotta think about. These aren't just storage units. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Linder, 58695 Pontiac Trail. My husband already showed you where we live up there, right on the corner, so we kind of have on both sides. I like the concept of it, not necessarily for this area, but I think there could be a need for it someplace. But 1,800 square feet, as you said, is a large piece, a lot larger than a lot of these homes. The fact that they need plumbing and sewer, I don't think that's necessary. That's not what you use for a storage unit. You're not putting, unless they're planning on staying there for extended period of times. That's not storage. This was proposed as storage only. And it just seems, and again, the chemicals and stuff that could be stored there, working on their stuff, they're going to have businesses, as I said, maybe businesses are going to be buying these and storing their whatever all in there. That's not personal, private use. That's still a business use. They're just buying it and just moving their stuff there and then maybe renting it somewhere else. But still, there's going to be trucks and stuff in and out all the time. I bought this property knowing what was around it, checked my survey, looked at the title commitment, knew that the gas line was back there, knew everything that was going on when we bought that property. So now because these people brought it and maybe didn't do a little further, the airport was there, find out that you weren't going to be able to be residential, why buy it? But yet I'm supposed to take the hit on my property, backing up to what they're choosing to put back there that's not residential. So no longer I'm now backing up to some commercial property, which I didn't spend my money on, spend my money over the years developing and improving my property so that they can benefit and I can lose, along with all the other residents in that area with our property values going down.
Thank you.
My name is John Mazzaris. I live at 58501 Pontiac Trail. I'm going to keep it super short. Pretty much everybody's touched base on what my main concerns are. And there's a bunch more that we could go over if this ever got to planning. I really hope that it doesn't. But one of the big ones, though, you got a bunch of storage units there. Pilot comes in, he's going to try to avoid them, right? And my backyard's right there, right, with my kids, and their play for it, and the wife's garden, and everything that is right here on the map. So, of course, they're going to avoid the big giant building. Where do you think the next spot for them to go is going to be? Right where my kids play. And not just my kids, the neighbors' kids. Unfortunately, Chris can't be here, and there's a few other neighbors that can't be here. It's 11 o'clock at night, the day after 4th of July. Yeah, I just really hope you guys take that into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. How you doing?
My name's Dave Middleton. I live 59100 Anna Drive, New Hudson. Well, this might be a good concept. I think the location is really bad. Not good for our housing. And you're not going to be able to control what goes on there. Somebody might buy the thing and you might say, oh, I don't like it. He's going to rent it out to Joe Blow, who knows who, and what's going to go on there. Who's going to control all that? It's going to bring in a lot of who knows what there. I think it'd be a big problem for that area. I don't think, Mr. Green, would you like that in your backyard? Yeah, we don't want it in our backyard. I just think it's going to bring a lot of unknowns. I don't think it's a good idea there. Might be a good idea, but not there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else like to come on up? No one? Okay. All right, so there it is. You guys, you want to make a conversation, or you want to talk about this, or where do you want to go? Anyone? I'm just going to, again, this always comes to this board as a situation from somebody buying a piece of property that maybe down the road they don't understand what could happen. We have to come in and make a decision to say, okay, we want to change the zoning to light industrial, to this or to that, because someone else made a mistake when they bought a piece of property. That's the way I look at it. And it's not fair. It just doesn't seem fair to the surrounding residential people. I mean, they all have houses there. They've all bought with seeing the future land use, the land use as it was, as R3, as it is now, as it always has been. And my opinion is I just can't get behind it because of that. Well, that's totally just me. And there's 6 other members on this board that can talk, and maybe they're all for it, but that's just me. So somebody's got to talk up and get this thing moving, because everybody's been here till 11 o'clock tonight.
Sure. Well, looking at the McKenna letter and the 9 criteria that need to be met for the conditional rezoning, and I guess, the ones that stick out to me, are 1, 2, a little bit of 6 and 7, but basically it comes down to it's not meeting the master plan, and it would result in a spot zoning within the residential neighborhood. So, you have the airport and how they have come before, not only, I guess, according to this in the past, this particular parcel, but I know they were also present on objected to developments on the opposite side of Milford Road too. But I guess ultimately we're trying to do this for the township, not the airport. So, I mean, I'm kind of looking at this as it's still a spot zoning and non-compliance with our master plan.
Is that a motion?
Please, Robert, you guys want to speak up on this?
I agree with you.
I mean, I was leaning towards, as much as I know everyone wants resolution, I kind of am interested in tabling to look a little deeper at the product and what, I can, I guess I'm just curious if anyone else would be amenable to that. That's where I'll leave it at the moment. Because I wasn't aware of other ones to see how this had worked out, see if there's anything that could be some sort of a middle ground. But
I'll make a motion in AP 22-20 to deny the request because it's not consistent with section 9.03E of the zoning ordinance, as was stated by Trustee Enlow.
I'll support.
We're going to call this one by roll, please. April?
Christopher Enlow.
Yes.
John Dolan.
Yes.
Michelle Cash.
Yes.
Robert Swain.
yes.
Sean O'Neill.
Yes.
Lisa Blades.
Yes.
Tricia Conley.
Yes.
Okay. So that, sorry, but we just believe it's the wrong place, and sorry if everybody's to...
Thank you.
All right. All right, I think that ends the regular business of the Township Trustee Board, and I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
10:58 p.m.